Sit on the front edge.
Yeah, they kill my.
All right, call to order the June 1st Parks and Recreation Commission meeting. Let's see, Pledge of Allegiance. Commissioner Jacobson. Could you lead us, please?
Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Right, roll call.
Commissioner Gilbert.
Here.
Hold on. Commissioner Gilbert.
Here.
Commissioner Jacobson.
Here.
Commissioner Ittner.
Here.
Chair Firestone.
Here.
Commissioner Murphy.
Present.
And absent this evening is Commissioner Dutter, but he forewarned us.
All right, public comments? No?
No public.
Okay, so the presentation for Rick Thompson, we're going to wait on because Rick is teaching tennis right now. He'll be here later.
He's at the lower courts right now.
This evening. And is this Renee?
This is Renee.
All right, Renee Rapp is going to give a presentation on aquatics.
I am Renee Rapp, as you introduced. I am the pool manager for the Summer Aquatics Program for the Ojai Rec Department. Have been for the last, I think, 5 to 7 years. I haven't kept track. It just goes by too fast. Anyways, I have a quick presentation. I wasn't exactly sure what you guys were hoping for, so I hope this will meet your needs. If you have any questions, feel free to interrupt me. I'm kind of used to that, especially with kids in the water. Next. So the first thing I was asked to make sure you guys understand is your staff as far as the Summer Aquatics Program. The staffing of the pool has been pretty consistent through the time that I have been there. We've had some changes as far as how we utilize the staff. Basically, you have a pool manager, that would be me. I am a water safety instructor, WSI, and lifeguard through Red Cross trained. I just recerted my lifeguard about a month ago, and it was a real joy, again. And we have 3 water safety instructor and lifeguards on staff, as well as 4 additional lifeguards who I also treat as teaching aides. And the reason we did that was twofold. First off, it gives the lifeguards something to do, because we usually only have 1 guard on duty when we're having swim classes, which is really what we're addressing here. And then the other 2 to 3 lifeguards are sitting around not getting themselves into trouble. And I felt that rather than have them sit in the shade and watch everybody else have fun in the pool, we'd get them in the pool with everybody else. So basically what we've done is we've doubled up on our instructor ratios. We're able, through the Red Cross recommendations, to have, depending on the age of the child, between 6 and 10 participants per instructor. With the aides, we can add half again that many if we chose to. And most of the time, we end up not having quite that burden of participants. Normally, especially in the preschool, I have the aides double up just because it gets the kids out in the water, way more frequently than they otherwise would be in the water. So it's worked out really well. The lifeguards like it because they're in the pool with the kids, which is a lot of fun. And the kids like it and the parents like it because they get to be out in the pool more and being out and swimming and doing other activities. So it's, I think, a win-win for everybody. And then as far as their training, I was asked to give that. I am, at this time, the water safety instructor trainer. For Ojai, I also train for the city of Fillmore, Ojai Valley School, Besant Hill, at Happy Valley. I train for a variety of different organizations. And I am a certified water safety instructor trainer through Red Cross. I have been certified doing that for about the last 12, 15 years. I'm also a certified lifeguard instructor, and there's a difference between what those mean, from Red Cross as well, have been for about the last 12 to 15 years as well. I do the majority of the training for the staff. Sometimes staff comes in pre-trained, but I take advantage of my ability to say, but I think I want to see you show me what it is you think you know. So I have them run through the paces with me just to confirm that what they have learned is what they should be doing in the water, and also to keep them safe. So we do have that. As you can see, in addition to that, the time it takes to become a certified lifeguard, assuming you can pass all the qualifications that are required, which are numerous, it takes approximately 28 hours to do the bookwork and the in-the-pool activities. It takes about 3 hours additional to get a lifeguard to become a teaching aide, just because we need to teach them. I need to give them a little bit of understanding of how you present the material in the water, and what are you looking for, how you support the child, all those kinds of things in the pool. As far as becoming, in addition to a lifeguard, becoming a water safety instructor, that takes approximately 32 hours of training. So if you are a water safety instructor and a lifeguard, you're spending about 60 hours in training to get those two certifications. And the majority of that time is spent in the water, climbing out of the pool, going in the pool, coming out of the pool, going in the pool, and doing all sorts of things in the water, just because obviously we're a water aquatics environment. To become an instructor and an instructor trainer, so for me, I'll use me as an example, I've had the 60 hours of training that it requires to be a lifeguard as well as a water safety instructor. In addition to that, I had about another 20 hours of training to be a lifeguard instructor. So I'm up to 80 hours now. And then to be a WSI trainer, I had another 20 hours. So I'm up to about 100 hours of just training, and then all the years of experience behind that. So that's where we are with that. We do have several staff who are returning, which is always exciting because when they come back, they already know what's going on. We don't have to go through a lot of rehashing of things. I do have even the returning staff go through at least 4 to 5 hours in the pool with the new incoming staff. 1, so they get to know each other, and 2, to put them through their paces to be sure that over the last year they haven't forgotten what they learned. So it's kind of a dual purpose activity going on. So that is the staff in a nutshell. And most of the staff, I think all the staff is drawn from the community. They're not from, like Timbuktu or something. So they're all from the Ojai Valley, generally speaking. By the numbers, these are numbers, I take the daily counts of how many people come through the pool, but I don't maintain records on that. So these are provided back to me from the rec department. We have about 300 people coming through in swim lessons in the last few years. I've seen an uptick in that, I think primarily because, well, my opinion, the Villanova pool is an amazing pool to have swim lessons in, and it really makes it a nice place to be for the parents and an amazing facility for the kids. So I think that has really helped a lot. I hope that part of that is also bringing in the teaching aids so the kids are more and more interacting and more training in the pool rather than just sitting on the stairs waiting for their turn. So I think all of that has combined a bit, and the publicity that's been out there as far as the program being available and how it's running and everything like that, I think has helped as well. We do have reinstated private lessons. That was reinstated last year. We offer 3 private lessons on a weekly basis, and that is only limited by the fact that we only have 3 WSI, because it's best if I'm not in the pool or committed to being in the pool all the time because of all the interactions with the parents and so forth that I end up having to do. So with that, the teaching aids, again, it's been so nice having those guys in that water. The kids just, you see them, the kids just love it. They're all over them. It's hilarious to watch. As far as public swim, we had apparently 1,840 entries over the course of the 6 weeks in last summer. It was at days I was thinking, man alive, can we really put any more people in this pool and watch them well? Because the majority of them end up in the shallow end. Because that's where you have most of your fun. You walk around, you splash each other, you hang out, then you go swim in the deep end for a bit, and then you come back to the shallow. So the shallow end starts getting a little impacted, and that's, it works. You guys have the individual and family passes, which works out very well. I see a lot of families coming back day after day after day, which, my perspective, the kids are comfortable in the water, they're learning how to deal with themselves in the water, and they're keeping safe in the water. And to me, that familiarity with the water is just an imperative in the education of our youth. And then we have the standard, when a group comes in, we present the pool rules to the group, do the regular safety talks and so forth. We have pool rules posted so that anyone entering the pool facility knows what the rules are, and if they had any questions, they're welcome to ask about them. We also collect funds from those people who don't have passes. I believe it's still $5 per entry per day. And it's a kind of a thing where you could come at 8 o'clock in the morning and do your lap swimming, and then come in the afternoon and play in the pool, and we count that as one day. And then they can come back the next day and do the same thing. And those funds are submitted, they're tallied, counted, sealed, submitted to the rec department daily. Even on Saturdays, we drop them in the little lockbox slot that's at the department office. Next. And as far as our facilities, this year is a little different. In the past several years, I'd say this 5 years or so, we've had the pleasure of being at Villanova, and that's been really amazing. I'm very thankful that we are able to continue the swim lessons at Villanova because primarily the shallow end steps. Villanova's shallow end steps are about 20 feet long, and you can fit a lot of little kids on those steps and not have the risk of them bouncing, kind of like, I call it Tigger walking in the pool. They kind of bounce through the pool like this, trying to touch the bottom and go next, touch the bottom, go next, touch the bottom, go next. Instead, they're able to sit on the steps during both lessons and open swim time. They're a lot more comfortable with that control of themselves in the water, and I just find it's an incredible situation for the aquatics program in general, and for the kids. I mean, they're just able to be independent in the water. And the knowledge of how the water feels and what it does to your body. When you do this, what happens? And when you do this, what happens? And all those things. It really makes a big difference in their being able to handle a situation where they may be in some kind of a difficult, perhaps dangerous place in the water, but they know, if I do this, I can get on my back and breathe, or whatever. So I think it's been wonderful. So we will be continuing the swim lessons at Villanova, for which I'm very thankful. And also the parents. Can you imagine? You sit there. You all have been to Villanova? Yeah. You sit there and you've just got this panoramic view of the hills with the oak trees and the birds flying overhead. What more could you? And you have shade. You can't beat that. So it's just a nice situation for the parents as well while they're sitting waiting. Then our public swim, we will be moving daily to Nordhoff's pool. Allison and I did a tour of Nordhoff's pool yesterday, actually, because it's been a while since I've gone through the facilities and wanted to kind of get myself familiarized with it. So we are ready for that. We've kind of been looking at what equipment we're going to have to duplicate, because 2 facilities means 2 sets of backboards, 2 sets of rescue tubes, 2 sets of first aid kits. So you have all this duplication now because you have, I can't be hauling back and forth, all the sunshades and everything else for the staff that we need. So all those kinds of things we're having to pull together, even things like umbrellas, hats for the staff, in the water. They need some kind of sun protection. So all those things we've been addressing, and Allison's working towards procuring that. From my perspective, the Nordhoff swim pool, I like that it has a deep end. I think it's really amazing that the kids can go deeper than 7 feet in the water. Most kids don't have the opportunity to do that. I see a lot of kids come in there, oh yeah, I can swim really great, but they've been swimming in water that's 3.5 feet deep. And that's, I call Tigger swimming, because they bounce off the water bottom, swim a bit, bounce off the bottom, swim a bit, bounce off the bottom. And that's not propelling yourself through the water without being able to touch the bottom. Say you're in the ocean. You can't touch the bottom in the majority of the ocean. So things like that, I think it's going to be a good experience for those kids out there. It's very convenient to town, which is nice. A lot easier for people if they're taking public transportation to get to the Nordhoff pool than it is to Villanova, because it is so tucked away back in there. And it's also, we have a few issues that we'll contend with. And from my perspective, actually, it's really great for the lifeguard training because Red Cross has changed, about every 5 years, they revise their system. And this year was the year again. And when some of the changes include rescues and activities for lifeguards that you only do when the water is really close to the deck. Nordhoff's pool, the water is, there's quite a distance between the deck and the water. And at Villanova, there's a big difference. Nordhoff is very close. And that means that I will be able to take them and make them do it in both circumstances, which is kind of a good experience for them, as well as having to retrieve some weighted objects from more than 7 feet of water is going to be kind of interesting to see how well they do with that. So I enjoy, drowning people, so it's good. The disadvantage to using Nordhoff is it's a short season. They're having to have us be out of the pool on the 19th of July, I believe, is the last day that we will be able to have public swim.
What's the
So
start date?
Pardon?
What's your start date?
19th of June.
June 19th.
Yeah, so
Okay.
we lose basically 2 weeks of the season. We have 4 weeks, 4.5 weeks, and we'll lose 2 weeks. So,
And that's due to construction at the Nordhoff pool, but not on the pool, but I believe the restrooms and the locker rooms, so.
They don't want people
They-
out there when that's going on.
No, so I hope maybe next year it'll be,
I don't know.
yeah, who knows if we'll be at Villanova full time or if we'll do this swim lessons in the morning at Villanova and then public swim at Nordhoff again. But if that scenario happens again, it'll be for longer period of time at the Nordhoff pool.
Well, excuse me, that kind of brings up a question. Why does Villanova not allow us to do the public swim at their facility in the afternoons, or do they have programs?
My understanding is that this year, just last year, they hired a new swim coach, and for his schedule, the timing of their swim team practice needed to be earlier in the afternoon,
Okay.
and that precluded us being able to stay until 3 on the weekdays. And so with that, it just made sense to try to find another way to have public swim. So that was what I understood was going on with that. As far as the moving back and forth, we're going to see how it goes. I have no idea how this is going to work out because, I usually utilize the time from, swim lessons are over at 11:20, and usually I open swim at 11:45 or 12 is when I open for public swimming because I use that time in between for staff in-service training. And so now with basically that being travel time now, I'm going to have to work out a schedule of how I'm going to do the in-service training regularly outside of the normal pool hours and still have the fact that we have to be out of the pool at Nordhoff by 3 because they have people coming in after that. And we have, limited as far as how early can we get to Villanova. And so we're kind of getting squeezed in the middle, so.
What's the breakdown? What time do you leave Villanova, and what time does the afternoon program start?
We are at Villanova from 8 a.m. until basically 11:30. That gives us time to clean up after the swim lessons and put things away. At 11:30, then 11:30 to 11:45. I'm not sure how long it's going to take us yet. I'm going to see. At that point in time, then we will dismiss everybody. They'll all take their half-hour lunch at the same time, as opposed to in the past we've staggered lunches, which has worked fine. So they'll have their half-hour lunch. Gets them back to Nordhoff 15 minutes before the pool opens, which allows us to get everything set up, prepared, them all in sunblocked up again, and do the whole thing. So the pool then would open to the public at 12:30. So we'll be there at 12:15. And I will basically just go straight from Villanova to Nordhoff, because I have some things I have to get set up before the staff gets there. So it's going to be kind of interesting how I get my lunch, but we'll work that out. So that is pretty much it. Did you guys have any questions about?
I have it's going to sound like a weird question, but
No
it's just
problem.
kind of how my mind tends to work. As the instructors are traveling from Villanova to Nordhoff, on the clock, off the clock?
Oh, they're off the clock.
That's on their time?
Yes, it's their half-hour lunch.
Okay.
Yeah, so they will sign out at Villanova, sign, on their timesheets, sign out, and then travel and sign back in. I'll take the book with me to sign back in at Nordhoff. I just have to remember to take the book with me.
Okay.
That'll be the biggest struggle, I'm sure. Anything else I can answer for you?
I had a question. Well, first of all, thank you. Thanks
You're
for coming.
welcome.
And
Yeah.
this is very informative. So, part of why we wanted to have you here tonight, right before the season started, was in case there were any open spots, so you could pitch what they are. So, what are the classes for? Who are they intended for? How much do they cost? What are the dates?
I
Are there any
intentionally keep
openings?
myself out of that.
Okay.
The rec department sets the fees. I don't even pay attention because it's, to me, it's, that's what they're really good at. And I like to focus on what I hopefully am reasonably good at, which is getting the kids in the pool.
Got
and
it.
getting
So,
them
what
going.
are the classes?
The classes that we offer are the full spectrum of American Red Cross Learn to Swim courses. They start with what we call parent and child, used to be mommy and me. I'm sure you guys are all familiar. The parent goes in with the child into the pool. So we start with parent and child. We work our way then to preschool aquatics. And parent and child is about 6 months to 3 years. And then preschool aquatics is 4 to 5, just preschool age, so 4 or 5 year olds normally. That is a class that obviously would take place on the stairs because they don't swim real well, if at all. And then we move into the learn to swim levels, and you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. 6 being the advanced swimming, like you're preparing for a swim team, competitive swimming, diving, synchronized swimming, anything like that tends to be level 6. Ones are obviously just coming out of preschool, hopefully able to hold on to the wall, get themselves. One of the main things we teach, one of the first things we actually teach in preschool is, I call it crab walking. Where you take your hands and you choo-choo train, whatever, along the wall, because that is self-preservation. You can hold on to the wall, you can keep yourself in the air, and that's all we matter. So the level ones are in the shallow end. They tend to work their way through, learning how to get themselves through the water, learning to be comfortable not having someone always holding them, that kind of thing. Level 2s are much more independent than the level 1s, learn to swim level 2. They're going to be working more on actual strokes. Level 1s is more about getting your legs moving the way they ought to be moving, getting your arms moving, and used to the idea of actually taking them out of the water as opposed to just kind of doing a doggy paddle sort of situation, that kind of thing. So level 2s are more and more strokes. Level 3s are going to be, how would I put it, separate them by, is the child willing to jump into the deep end? If they're willing to jump in the deep end, they're probably going to handle level 3s. I mean, we'll check their strokes and so forth, but if they're not willing to jump in the deep end, then level 3 is probably going to be more than they want to take on at first. So that is one of the ways we do separate the courses, is we say, okay, we're going to all line up here and you're all going to jump into the deep end. And kids will go, don't wanna. And we'll say, okay, just go on over there. And they'll be in the shallow end and they'll have a grand old time in there. So level 3s are more swimming. I or the instructor is out in the middle of the pool. They're on the wall. They swim to us. They swim back. And then we're working more on kind of refining their strokes, making their strokes look like actual swimming strokes as opposed to approximations of swimming strokes. And then we have the 4s and 5s that are, beyond just the basics of learning how to move themselves through the water and going to, let's really get these strokes nice and smoothed out. Let's start learning flip turns, good open turns, all that kind of stuff. So, and those are obviously going to be in the deep end as well. And that's another group unto themselves. And you can also kind of tell where you are in the levels by where the instructor is. Like the 4s and 5s, the instructor's on the deck. He doesn't go in the water much. The 3s, you'll be in the water and on the deck. It kind of goes both ways. 1s and 2s, preschoolers and parent and child, you're in the water. And you're with them, and how much contact you have with that child. How much are you having to carry them, in essence, or support them in the pool. All of that kind of ties in with what level they're in. So that's how we put it together.
Thanks. And these are, each course is 1 week long?
2.
2 weeks.
2 4-day weeks. Okay. And Ojai, I think, has the distinction of being willing to be what's called a learn to swim facility through Red Cross. And there's some benefits to that, to the program, as well as to your instructors. because of the methodology by which you maintain your certification, one of which is, as a water safety instructor, you have to teach. And the only way you can prove you taught is to put it into the Red Cross system. And the only way you can put it into the Red Cross system is if you work for a Learn to Swim facility. So it's been really nice that Ojai's been willing to be a part of that, because it's made the, having the instructors come back each year, they don't have to worry about recertifying with me to be able to do it again under a Red Cross banner. So it's been helpful.
Great.
One last question. The individual swims, when are those with the individual instructors? Like the one-on-one
private
lessons? Private lessons.
They
Sorry.
are, let me think, 8:15 to 8:45.
So they're the
AM.
same days, it's just a different time?
Yeah, Monday through Thursday, they only get 1 week for private lessons, but
Right.
it's 8:15 to 8:45.
Nice.
And those are already full for the
Already
summer.
full, okay.
Yeah.
All 6 weeks.
Wow. And maybe a question for Allison, the other courses?
Yes.
Are there still openings for all of those?
Yeah, so we do have openings in all levels. Some classes are starting to fill just depending on the time slot, but I believe all levels, all sessions, we have at least, a couple openings. So definitely people should go register. The 2-week lessons are $70 for the 2 weeks, so pretty, not too crazy. We do also offer scholarships as well with everything else. We do get a lot of people applying for scholarships for aquatics, which is great. And yeah,
Our family swim pass is 70.
family swim pass is 80.
Oh, it's 80.
And individual swim pass is 40. Those are the same fees as we charged last year, even though our season it's about
Oh, right.
9 days shorter, I think, something like that. But we're adding another day. We're adding Fridays for public swim, which in the past it would just be Monday through Thursday and Saturday. So we're adding a day, as well as we were planning to increase our fees slightly this year. So we're not doing that, obviously. We're keeping the same fees, but we're just adding a day. So really, they're not getting anything less. It's just a week shorter.
Thanks.
No problem.
Any other questions, comments? Oh, well, thanks for coming.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Renee.
Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you,
See
Renee.
you guys later.
Thanks.
All right. Next, we've got, I don't think we have a police report today.
We do not.
No. Okay. Mr. Grant, just in time for our Public Works report.
Perfect
Good
timing.
entrance.
Welcome.
I didn't really time it that well. I was out in the foyer there, so I kind of didn't. Yeah, I think in general, the crew has been prepping for the Ojai Music Festival. That's the big push for, there'll be, I think the first concert's next Wednesday night. So we got a new shade fabric in, and it was installed, was that yesterday? I think it was just put in yesterday. And they're, I guess, something a little different this year. They're having a movie. So as part of that movie, they wanted to inflate a large screen or stretch some kind of big screen out up on stage. And so we've tried to elevate the shade fabric a little bit higher in the air, so you see some, some kind of tension strings on there to help pull it up. But at least we got that in and installed in time, so that was a little tight. And you might notice at the turf hill out at Libby, we had the areas where they've been kind of a maintenance headache for us. So we've got somebody who's kind of more of a carpet specialist than a landscaper. That's what it seems to be. The stuff really comes from the same carpet mills as over in the East Coast. And he's got a technique. He's trying to improve that. But you can really see, it's amazing that the same material out there really stands out. You can see after the kids have just beat the death out of that stuff for a year and a half now, it's really kind of smoothed out and mushed down and mashed down or whatever. And so this new stuff stands out a little bit, but I'm sure it'll wear in. And I'm not 100% confident this is the answer. It seems to be this technique of fastening it. The glues are just not that strong, So
And is the turf hill reopened now? Because I know last week I had my grandson there, it was roped off.
well, it's going to be open tomorrow.
Tomorrow, okay.
The way the glues are right now, they wanted to let them set for.
Okay.
I think they just finished it end of yesterday, so they want to set till tomorrow morning. So it should be open for the weekend. And the mister as well. I think we had some kind of Facebook complaints that the way the mister's set up, that the water the trigger is down low and it fills up the mechanism there and it sprays through the heads. And then when the button kicks off, it's like I think it's about a 20-second button. And when it kicks back off, and they're micro spray heads. Each head, I think, was in the range of a half a gallon per minute. So it's fairly low, right, when that goes on for that period of time. 5 heads, I think, for half a gallon. So each for 2.5 gallons for 20 seconds. So it's kind of in the range of a gallon per spray cycle. And but what happens is that water is caught up there in the piping, and then it just kind of slowly drains out. It sprays for a little bit and drains out of each hole, so it stops. Once the pipe drops down a little bit, it quits spraying out of the top, leaking out of the top and then the bottom. So some people were bothered by that, I guess, and we did look, and there's a way we can open it and put these spring-loaded check valves on them.
They were
So-
bothered like it was wasteful, or?
Exactly, I think
Okay.
it was wasteful, yeah. So even though I think the kids still run through that part of it, but it's not high-pressure spray, you know. So I think we figured out a way to put in these special check valves and all that. So it's not on the super hot list, but it's on the we're going to do it pretty soon list. So I think in a month or so you'll see those check valves and it'll lock that out and take care of it. So for your information. And I think at Libby, that was most of what was going on at Libby. At Sarzati, we had the grand opening, ribbon cutting during the rec department's open house. That seemed like a nice event over there. I think quite a few of you were there. It's a great event. And Shade Structures real popular, and the Ojai Civic Association showed up. That was nice to have Dean Vadney over there. And he just was appreciative of the structures as well, and we thanked him very much for their generous donation to make those structures possible. And hopefully everybody saw in the biggest, longest structure, there's a pedestal with a plaque on it for the Ohio Civic Association.
It's very attractive. That was really nice.
Yeah, that worked?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So I think that was that for the general updates. I'm trying to think of other items. I know that we did have, over here, there was a demonstration of electric rechargeable equipment that the Ojai Valley News put on, and a consultant was there that brought some other equipment as well, like a riding mower made by Mean Green, I think it was, you know. So they have a riding mower that actually work at Sarzati that's rechargeable, and I guess they're used quite a bit across the country, and they're not cheap. I mean, it's about $25,000, which is about what we spent for a Toro mower a couple of years ago, about 2 or 3 years ago. So we have a pretty new mower. But there is this idea, and I think the mayor and citizens from town here, from the Ohio Citizens for Clean Air, went down and pushed with the Air Pollution Control District to try to create a grant program incentive that would help both the city convert their equipment over to rechargeable, try the rechargeable, as well as possibly have an incentive for commercial blowers and other tools that they would flip to rechargeable. So I think that was a committee that recommends it to the board, and they have to go through those steps. There's a possibility that program will come together. I haven't heard the end of that, where it's at. So anyway, a slight chance that you might see electric rechargeable riding mower at Sarzati maybe next year. A slight chance.
How long's the battery life? Can you do the whole thing?
Yeah, it was surprisingly good. I mean, I think right now we're spending about 3.5 hours mowing Sarzati, and it takes, that's a little bit smaller mower. I think ours was 72-inch width, and that was a 60, so we thought it'd take 4.5. And it's supposed to be able to handle, and I guess it matters a lot on the type of the kikuyu grass and all that. It gets thicker, and it really pushes the blade, and it eats up more gas or electric. And so that appeared to be well within the range of what it's expected for that. So
Great.
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that was a general update. Was there? I don't know if
Greg,
there's a
will you-
particular.
I guess you'll talk about the north parking lot at Sarasota and the shade cloth when we get to that on the CIP.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess you've got it there on the agenda. So that, yeah, appreciate that prompt there. And that in June we've got all 3 parking lots planned to be resurfaced. So the one on the north end was pretty beat, and we're looking at practically getting overlay on that one. But the other 2, we can do special crack fill and do a slurry on those. So trying to make it for this year's budget and get it done this month.
Well, I heard through the grapevine, through your department, that it was going to start on Monday, the north parking lot at Sarasota.
Prepping it, right.
Prepping it, and then by Wednesday, having the overlay.
Yeah, for the north parking lot, right?
The north
And then we'll
lot,
move to
yeah.
the central and south, yep. Because really 3 parking lots there, right? Yeah. So that'll be nice, get those all cleaned up and restriped, and one more down. And then, the shade fabric, we've got it all designed and spec'd out, and we're having a hard time getting a reasonable price.
This is for the patio.
For the, for that kind of courtyard or whatever,
Courtyard, okay.
And, this is exactly what happened with the Libby Bowl. I mean, that the bowl was super expensive shade that was not affordable to design or to build. So we had to basically go through all the steps ourselves to design it ourselves. And I actually used to manage a landfill. And the landfill, we have these huge 120-foot by 120-foot cloth fabrics that we would pull over the refuse instead of burying them in trash and dirt every day to save on dirt and all the time and effort it took to bury it every day. So those people really, in Overland, Louisiana, have the best pricing on the shades. So our last resort will be to go to them. I really thought these shade fabrics are so common, I thought there'd be people out there that would do custom sizes at a more reasonable price. So anyways, we're close. We're trying to find a firm and get it done. So once we get that ordered, it's relatively quick. We're not quite making the heat, although we're doing good for now. So,
That's right. So you still think that realistically by July, you think you could have it in?
I think it might be, we might have to get into July.
Okay, so it won't be done for July 1st.
I'm hoping, but it's a little bit difficult right now getting, and we had some problems with this shade cloth for the bowl, so I'm a little hesitant to use the same company. Some of the contacts I had left there, and they're not as careful. We had some issues with this cloth. So,
And if we looked at the ability to do it with standard sizes creatively, that you can get, that are prefabbed, because there are all different qualities that you can buy in prefab shapes.
we haven't, but that's a neat idea. Yeah.
You guys have done a great job with so many things that you've done on your own. I just was,
Yeah, to maybe take some of those standard sizes and, yeah, because they have different size triangles and different size squares and all that.
and
Maybe
see
we
if
could
you
almost,
fit that puzzle together of shapes to,
yeah, it's a great idea. Well, I mean, we could,
it's maybe worth a look.
yeah, I mean,
It's not a huge span,
right.
so you're not looking at maybe needing the amount of tension you would need on something with a wider span. I speak as if I have any idea about this, but I don't, but I'm just curious, because so many people are putting those up now, and there's so many more options to
Right.
buy them off the, already done.
And like we just found with Libby Bowl shade is that, even if you have a sag in it, you can basically just put really tense, high tension,
Oh,
ropes.
through that one area.
Kind of weave it and pull it up a bit. That's what they did for the film and some of the sound. They're very careful about the sound. Like during the music festival, they have the high racks of speakers that really project sound to everybody in the audience. But the most concerts there, they just keep low speakers and they come.
Right.
It's not as critical as the way they've got it set up. But so we landed pulling that up anyhow.
So after your week of working on those, put everyone to work thinking on the ones for the courtyard.
Yeah, that's an interesting idea, though. I appreciate that. Yeah, a standard size is making them work, So I think that's kind of the update. Most of the things I can think of, yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great, thanks.
Okay. Well, we're going to be hearing more from you in a minute. I think we still don't have minutes.
We don't, but I don't know. Should we give you a minute update? Because I seem to have done that. You don't want one.
No.
They're
They're
going
either
to
here or
have.
they're not, and
Right.
it's good.
Very
When
good.
they're here, they're here.
That's right. Well, here's the update. They're going to eventually come to you complete
Wow.
at some point.
That's fine.
Breaking news.
Maybe next month.
Yes.
They're not going to be done by our department, so.
Yeah, they
Oh,
will
this
be
is-
done.
It's the laptop.
Oh, so there's a new plan
There is a new
since
plan.
last month. Well, that's important to know.
Yes, the new plan is it will be done by our department.
Okay.
I was watching going,
Great.
it looks like Allison's
see.
taking minutes.
Yeah.
Allison is
Allison
doing
has
that.
taken a stab at taking minutes.
I'm sure you're going to do a good job.
Sorry.
Yes.
The contents of the minutes. I know we discussed earlier that there was a move towards just the motions, but
Motions and votes, yeah.
That motions, action items, and, there is still some minutes taken if they're, at least at the city council level. That's how they're operating their minutes now. Because there's a greater move toward the videos being the the real legal
Record.
of those meetings. And we're going to follow that lead. So our minutes, when you do receive them, they'll be a lot briefer than maybe what you've seen in the past.
Okay.
But the last person to do our minutes was one of the, City Hall staff had done them, and I think there was some good feedback, and those were very brief as well. So, and you can always go back to those videos if you have
Yeah,
questions about meeting minutes.
Yeah, and one thing that, the main thing that I'm doing during the meeting is what we'll do in the minutes is we'll put timestamps by each agenda item. So you say, okay, we started this one at 41 minutes and 36 seconds.
That's
That way,
very
when you guys
helpful.
are wanting to
Yeah.
go back
Yes.
and look at particular topics, you can do that. So there'll be brief minutes, but
That's
you can
great.
access the
That's
video
great.
easily.
That's a huge improvement. So, but for January, February, March, and May, we're just gonna get motions and votes at some point and be done with those.
You'll get brief minutes.
Oh, you're gonna watch the videos and go back? Oh,
Yes.
that's good of you.
Well, for full disclosure, it will be Allison
Yes.
for now.
For now,
Great.
until I screw it up.
All right.
No, you're gonna do a great job. Thank you.
Anything else on minutes? Good. Okay. Back to Mr. Grant. The 5-year CIP plan.
Do you have a different, we have a copy, I passed out a copy, Greg, I don't know if you
I like
didn't,
the big format.
Get that.
you didn't get that?
I just got
Here
your
it
Parks and
comes.
Rec
Oh,
stuff.
what is that?
The big
I
format
don't
one
know
here.
how I got that.
There you go, Pat.
But that's what I got.
Oh, that's some budget, those are budget numbers.
Okay.
That was last meeting.
Oh, don't need that.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Greg, you always bring in the 11 by 7.
Wow, this is
Thank you.
very
Thank you,
readable.
Mr. Grant.
It's got connections.
Yeah, okay. Well, I had to squeeze it a bit, but yeah, so this is the 5-year draft. I want to say preliminary draft because we're still working through the balances. And I think part of those, even for the rec fund, is how much savings is always in discussion. You know, we assume in this CIP being the capital improvement plan for short, that we're going to have operational savings surplus of like 40,000 per year, but it seems to be, according to finance, it's closer to 20,000. So they're working that out. I don't know if you've talked more with Rudy about that.
No, we haven't discussed it, but that's probably more of a realistic number.
Mm-hmm.
And as expenses have risen.
Right, as the surplus came in and gets used in areas to help the programs out, it sounds like it chewed away a bit at the money. And that affects a little bit with the CIP, how much money we have set aside, as well as we've got a pretty aggressive paving program we committed to, which is the biggest hit. But I guess the good news on that is that we're going to pave this summer a lot of streets, about was it $1.4 million. And then in 2 years, we're going to pave in that range as well, and it'll catch up with all the dead-end streets throughout Ojai that have not been paved for a long time, 25, 30 years, a lot of them. So that's, once we get over the hump with that, we could probably, I'll run through the CIP here, and essentially we had to push out a little something, and that lands up being the Sarzati playground to get to the punchline. So if you run down, and to reminder here too, these first columns are kind of the summary. They're the ones that group the areas on the right together. On the right, you'll see, for instance, 1718, which is a reminder too, is 1718 is, and Councilman Blast, did you want a copy of this?
No, that's fine.
Yeah, okay. I think we have extra up here.
Yeah,
if
we
somebody
do.
wants to. Okay.
I can-
So the first columns, anyways, is the grouping, and the second ones, you'll see a column for Fund 31 being the capital improvement fund, and then the other funds. So other funds have a lot more detail, not shown here, but it's other funds like donations, AB 939 being that recycling fund that we developed from the solid waste franchise or any other sources of funds. So anyways, summary on the left, more detail on the right. So if we run down, for instance, go down 1718, what do we have proposed for this year starting in a month? We've got the remodel of the restrooms broken in between the 2 fiscal years, which really means we would do it next summer. And we're requesting from the Ojai Civic Association and hoping they might be helping us out with funding of that. And we've got the bike park, which is, well, I don't know. I thought that was going to be done by now, but that's being run by a volunteer group, and I think it's close to kicking off. Probably Sophocles has better info without diverting too much time on that one.
I wish I did, but
Yeah,
it's still in the environmental study stage.
Yeah.
that's true, right? Okay, it's secret
Yeah, it's still
documentation going
there.
on.
Yeah.
But you can see on that 20,000, if you go to the right, you'll see other funding. It's 20,000, and I believe that was all. That source would have been grant money from the volunteer group. I don't recall. I don't have the detail with me where that 20,000 was.
We had recommended up to I think a limit of a third of
A third. Okay,
Total
that's right.
cost.
Yeah, you're right. It rings a bell as you say that. So that detail would show it off to the right. And then you've got the turf hill. We'll see how these repairs go. We might be able to not do that. We're defraying that cost as much as we can. But if we do go to the rebuild, we're talking about trying to expand the mound a little bit and put larger turf over it. And then we've got the sewer line pump, and the Ojai Civic Association has shown interest supporting that rework. You know, that's that old sewer line in the park. So we've already got a design contract out on that, hung up in legal discussions about the contract. I haven't actually started design yet, but they're getting there. And then we've got down below the roofing at the Boyd Center for the flat section of Boyd roof. We have gymnastics equipment budget for next year of $10,000. I think that was what the request was from Vicki, right?
Yeah. I mean,
The 10, okay.
we were almost thinking in this fiscal year, I thought.
That was the recommendation,
At one
yeah.
point, but
Right. In this fiscal year, I mean, this budget, keep in mind, starts July 1st, so it's awfully darn close. Then we've got the light poles, which we just were up working on the lights a little bit. We've pushed up the priority on this, and so that's the $56,000. The outdoor basketball futsal court, we've got $50,000 budgeted. I think that was the number that the consultant had, and
it was close to that, maybe a little bit more for one court.
mm-hmm. So that is
But
budgeted.
those
I
are all
guess
estimates again.
Right.
Yeah.
right is the master plan. I guess is having some rework done on it. Is that where that went when it went to council? Right.
We have to bring it before them again. It was a split vote.
Okay.
So that represents just one court, not two.
It does
Yeah,
represent one
which is
court.
important to note because the plan
Yeah.
calls out two.
Yeah. And, of course, we were thinking it would be best to have them both built at the same time,
Right,
but
because they're
as funding
one
allows.
facility, yeah.
yeah, they are one facility
And-
theoretically.
Yeah, and forget, because I missed, is it, if they did do two courts, was it twice the price, or were you able to get two for?
Well,
I think you'll save a lot of money if you do.
I would think.
I mean, it might go up to 1.5 or so, but if you can prep it, I don't know if they're connected or if they're separated or not.
I think they were
well,
connected,
they're
if I
connected.
recall.
If they're connected, then
We
yeah.
don't have an actual design, but based on the layout and the
Right next to each
discussions
other.
from the master plan, that would be,
the recommendations
Yeah.
were to have them connected, maybe separated by, a fence of, I don't know of what height, but
well, and that's where you get into
Yeah.
a fence or a wall or something to sit on or not to, I mean, there's,
Mhm.
but
yeah. Those are all design questions, but would it be 100,000? Would it be 120,000?
so what's earmarked for it is 75 total, correct? Over 2 fiscal years?
Right. You've
So-
got it to be built next summer.
Right, so I guess the question is, 50 is enough for one.
Right.
We don't know how much for 2. 75 is budgeted, and we don't know how much more it would be to realistically get the full,
But if I understand Greg right, he's thinking 75, theoretically, 75 would build two at once. Or if you split it, you're going to be,
I think and it seems like a high conservative estimate, which is pretty classic for a consultant who's not heavily involved in it. That 75 is high, and I think it was one court. But I was saying that I think that second court, you could do it for maybe 60% of that cost. So maybe that's 75.
That's where I got confused.
Case you 125.
So-
But I also think they're conservatively high. It seems like we ought to see what we can do to, pre-engineer it to make it work.
but so as a description though, we should then, what we want to move toward is
first of
two.
two courts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really?
two multi-sport courts.
I like that term.
If if the amount budgeted only allows for one court, we're not being efficient with our funding, right? If it would be more efficient to do two at once.
Correct.
I never looked at that, and I didn't think there really even was detail. I just know, I think Saf told me that there was roughly 75 in a budget, some kind of an engineering estimate. He did a preliminary estimate for one
Yeah,
court, right?
For one court.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't have those numbers with me tonight, but.
I think we'll have to get some experience. If we're planning it
We'll
this
look at those.
upcoming fiscal year, we'll do the preliminary design on it and see where it's at and see what we can do to try to make it work close to this.
Yeah.
And try to get the two courts.
Right,
one,
exactly.
one thought would be to use this to do the two courts, but maybe not do the seating or get the pads down, whatever we can do with this money to do the two pads, but maybe the seating or the walls.
Because we're just talking
Becomes
large
later.
concrete pads
Right.
Yeah.
with a short fence. I don't know, I guess maybe what kind of fence, maybe make it so it's not, nobody gets hung up on it, right? Maybe it's vinyl coated or whatever. Seems like a lot of money to me. Seems like you could build
I agree.
two, I don't know if these are full-size basketball courts. Is that roughly what the size comes in
They
at?
are.
Yeah.
They are. They're the size of our gym, which is 70 by 90 feet.
Okay.
We're in that range.
Yeah.
But I
that's-
think as we do the research, the goal though is two,
Right.
not one.
Agreed.
And that's what we need to reflect in the CIP,
Okay.
in the description.
All right. So
that's-
I'll revise that description just to say
Yeah.
first of two courts.
Well,
And
Oh, you'll-
for now, and we'll see what we can do to make it work during the design.
could we change the description to say two courts?
Mhm.
I think that's if we're saying first of two courts, there's this kind of
It leaves it open. I think the
Economy of
reality is,
scale.
doesn't make sense to build one and then the second one.
Agreed.
Because it's too expensive. So what we need to do is do the research and see where we're at, but we definitely want two.
yeah.
So if two ends up being $140,000, we would land up kicking this thing out years and years, though, to make it work budget-wise.
I don't know. I mean, that's about priorities.
Right.
Or
But realistically, we want a two-court facility.
Mm-hmm.
right, or if there's a way to get the basics of the two courts
Right.
in, and then
Without all the
it's a
bells and
later
whistles.
year to add the bells and whistles.
Yeah.
That's
I don't think we know enough yet, but what we want is a two-court facility, two multi-sport courts.
We know what we want.
Right.
We don't know how we're going to get there.
Well, I know, but I think if we put it on there as one and everyone starts planning around one and
Right.
accepts that that's what we're trying to do, that's what we'll get. And that isn't what is called out in the master plan, which I understand isn't
Well,
adopted yet,
yeah,
but that's the
and-
goal.
I guess at this point, though, without any further information, we'd have to use the preliminary estimate done by the consultant, which is 150.
We could use that estimate, or the other option is to go out. I could do a little bit of research, because a while back I did that for just a futsal, when we were just talking futsal courts and wanting futsal courts. The estimates didn't seem that high, so.
Mhm.
But we can ask around from other cities to see if they've built
If anybody's built something similar, right.
multi-sport
Excellent idea.
courts, and what the cost was.
Yeah.
That, probably that simple.
Because even if we were just trying to do one, we'd need a lot more information to get started.
Right. I mean, I think this is conceptual to allocate money to see if it even works in our total budget. And then it could be, we'll come back and say, you know how it goes, a lot of times it's going to be more than the 75, it's going to be 95. And now we're short. And we'd have to reallocate some monies here. We'd have to take a look at anything that's more, for instance, that ball fields renovation.
Yeah, and we've talked about that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. The ball fields renovation is already kicked out a year. But, so maybe we'd look, we'd have to reorganize a little bit anyways, take
Yeah, I
that.
mean, I would say if we were choosing between the two, or leave it to this committee to decide on this, but prioritizing wise, my sense is that we might prefer the multi-sport courts over the refurbishing of the ball fields.
I think that reflects our previous
I
discussions.
think that was the sense, or maybe if that's,
I think
So
you're
that
accurate.
could be a more immediate thing, is we could allocate the 40 to the 50 plus 25 for the, do you want to call them, I had it called outdoor basketball / futsal. Did you have a different term, it sound like?
I think it's
Commissioner
a
Reed,
multi-sport court.
multi-sport.
multi-sport
Multi-sport
yeah.
court. That's kind of tough to say, but I got it, multi-sport court.
You can do, however you want to title it, whatever
Yeah,
works for you.
no, I mean,
Three
just tricky on
times
the tongue, that's all, yeah. So we, if the recommendation is there for you to do that, take the 40, add it to the 75, it's, cross our fingers, and this will get kicked out quite a ways, because we're already very tight to even get the, the playground in a few years out.
Right.
Okay.
I have a question. I'm
So
jumping
is
forward.
everybody
Oh, for the 40,000?
in agreement,
from the fields
recommendation
to
on
the-
that, or is that?
Yeah, yes.
Okay.
One of our, couple of our city staff might not be, but
Yeah.
they'll go with it. They'll roll with it.
Basketball.
She's good with that.
Just drop me softball.
A question on the light poles. You said that got moved forward. Is it kind of imminently needed?
I think so. Those poles, we've never been able to find a way without a very expensive process to go through and do X-ray on the whole pole and all that, and it's just impractical. So when we were up adjusting that, you just see the head rack is getting loose up there, so it's really a full cage that goes around the upper pole, so it's not going to slip off or come bolted or anything, but you can just see that pole has shrunk down, and it's all the years of age and so on it has. So
Are those the same poles that were there when I was playing baseball on those fields 40, 50 years ago?
I have no idea. I know the other poles are all oil field pipe.
Right.
So somebody, presumably that was kind of a volunteer effort as well. So they're slip fitted oil field pipe that's welded all the way up there
Yeah.
to the top and
I
so
think
on.
they probably are then.
Uh,
That's kind of scary.
just don't tell the HPC or we're going to
No.
get in trouble.
They might be.
And is that
Yeah, allegedly.
new lighting as well, or just the poles?
New lighting as well.
Okay. And is it
The
LED?
fixtures as well, yep.
Did you consider LED lighting?
Yeah, and I think we've been through it. Just the LED lighting. Where were they actually putting in some LED lighting? But you've got to redo the whole field. It lands up.
And it adds a lot of poles. This is the part that really made it very clear to me that this was not a viable option. To complete it with LED, you have to add poles in the middle of the field. There's poles all over the place, which then dramatically changes
Everything.
the usability of the whole entire field.
Especially in our case, because there was the two diagonally, fields are facing each other. You normally have it at the back of the outfield, really encroaching in, but we can't do that because we're
Right.
way back out the other side. So yeah, it was more poles and that issue, as well as the lighting efficiency is not that great with those really sports fields. LEDs is not that good. They
And the
take a
cost of
huge
the lights
bank.
themselves are dramatically more.
They have some advantage, but the energy savings was minimal.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, the new technology, I think that each one of those is it 5 fixtures on there? I think we're going to go to 3. I'm not sure about that, but it's a downsized number of fixtures because it isn't really so much the bulb is the same, but it's the reflective technology that
Well,
puts
that's
more light
good.
out there.
So it's still using less than we're using now.
Yeah, it was something like a 30% savings.
Well, that's
Yeah.
an improvement.
Great.
All right, so we had rehab the gym floor. I'm sorry, I jumped ahead of the next year, so that's out next year.
Can we go to the back real quick before we jump ahead?
Uh-huh.
The skate park lights, that whole project was donated.
Right.
So what's the 65,000?
If you go over that detail, you'll see the whole donations
Other
under
fund?
that other fund.
Okay.
Right. We did
We
spend
had
money.
had-
We spent
we
a
had-
pretty good chunk of money, but nothing like the lights, yeah.
Because we did have money allocated to that.
Right.
Where did that go?
It's in the other projects.
It's been reallocated.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, we had to basically rework all the electrical fencing and things up front and, that
So
was
portions of it,
most
been so, but it's not reflected the spending in here.
Right, it was minimal.
Okay.
And to that rehab gym floor, once again, that's a kind of a bigger question of whether it's necessary or when should it be done and when should it be done, and do we want to allocate those funds to another project? From my standpoint, I think the gym floor at Sarasota is still holding up
It's
fine.
got a little more life in it.
Yeah.
To layman's eyes, it looks terrific. You wouldn't.
Yeah.
It truly, I don't.
I think some gyms you see that surface worn through and you've worn into stripes and that kind of thing. It seems like you've kept a good coat of the varnish on there and it's protected the floor and there's no obvious that I've seen, right? Weak spots or wear through.
I don't see that. I'm not a gym floor expert per se, but as you said, to the layman's eye, and have been in many gyms, that floor, it comparably is still looking good. And I'm not sure if it requires a full sand down and relining. It's just my opinion on that, and it might be good to take those monies and move it to the multi-sport courts.
Has there been any complaints about the surface from any of the programs, gymnastics or basketball or?
There is a couple dead spots in the court, particularly closest to the door. So like if you're, really playing in the corners of the basketball court, but I don't get complaints from anyone. Most of the people that play there have been playing there for plenty of years, and they're the
Right.
ones that wore it out. But we don't get complaints. There's a couple little,
Oh, so the floor, it's not the finish on the floor, but it's a little loose from being fixed to the floor, and when you're playing basketball, whatever, it soaks up the bounce.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. But I mean, it's not bad at all.
I
And we
mean,
don't
there are
get
dead
complaints
spots
about
in the
it.
Boston Garden.
There you go.
Which is no longer there. So maybe a bad analogy.
Oh, no, that's not true.
No,
It's
I'm
still
kidding.
there. What are you talking about? That's still, that arena still exists.
They didn't, I thought
They
they took
didn't
that
tear it
down.
out. No, it's still,
Pardon me.
garden
Should've
is
put
still,
that
the
in the
parquet
minutes.
floor is still there.
So
We'll
you're
talk
you're
about it.
proposing you're proposing moving the 15,000 up with the 25 and the 40 for the multi-sport courts for 18-19. Is that correct?
The what, the 25?
The 15,000 for rehab gym
Right.
floor up with
Putting
the
that in the
25,
The 15
and
and
then the
the
40
40.
from the ball fields renovation.
Right.
That would put us at
That would
140.
be my
Mm-hmm.
own
Recommendation. Yeah,
recommendation.
no, fair.
Right.
I happily support that. You would know best on the maintenance
So-
side of things.
A lot of that comes from other fund. And in those
You're right.
cases, what is the other fund?
For the,
That's a presumption that we will receive some donations to help in some of this work.
Okay,
And I'm sorry, there's also some rec department funding as well,
right.
for the
which is,
for the gym floor?
yeah, each one of those have outside funding, so it'd be somewhere between the rec department and outside funding.
Yeah.
So,
So what do we have, 130 there? We have 75 plus 55,
but your point
right?
is
Yeah.
taken that they may not, whoever these outside funds are,
Right, if they
who
come
knows how
through.
much they're willing to give. So what we can count on is the inside, which is, it looks like,
It's
an
not broken
additional
out here. on the-
20,
Yeah, I should put
and
it in
then
the
whatever it is from the rehab of the gym floor that was gonna be out of Fund 31.
detail. Mhm.
Is that half again? Or you're not sure?
The 15, well, the 15 shows all other fund, which is more than likely was all rec fund. That rec fund's a little bit at risk too, because that rec fund builds up based on surplus from operations and the 50,000 annual allocation we had. So if that annual drops back, it'll have an effect on this. We'll take a look.
So that is being reused for other things before it gets here?
Yeah, its surplus will have an effect because we keep track of the rec fund, and it might knock back that fund a little bit. That's what we're going through with our final reviews of this whole capital improvement program.
So, but just to be clear, the surplus, which is there, is being used to pay for other projects in the CIP or
Well,
just other
the rec,
expenses?
the rec,
I understand there's
the-
general fund backing.
right, right,
And
the
I get it.
the rec department capital improvements are way beyond anything that the rec fund and the surplus cover. So it's
Right.
it's all heavily funded by Fund 31, the whole
Right.
city's surplus of capital improvement funds.
So that money is going into Fund 31 to fund some of these projects before we see it now, versus before we would see it and then we would talk about where it's going.
Yeah,
That'd
I
be
think,
an-
I
that
think
would be an
because.
accurate-
Right, I think that sounds accurate. I mean, we previously had this 5-year plan where we had monies allocated, and so, yeah, the fund, the rec fund was already allocated in here. It's never had any surplus that we could discuss where it would go.
Now,
Yeah,
because we have had years where that was, the process was, we would look at the surplus in its whole, talk about that, and then allocate it. But what we can expect from here on out, which is a change in the way that we're doing it, which I just want to be totally clear, is now that is not coming to us as an amount, even though there is an amount out there, that money is dealt with and redistributed before we look at it.
it was already dealt with last year when you looked at it. Last year, you
But then
allocated
this
5
year-
years of
thi-
capital
right,
improvement
But this
funding.
year's is going to be, we probably won't see it at all, that's what you're
It's-
talking
yeah,
about.
it's already in-
It's being dealt out already
Right.
before we'll even get to look at it.
It's over expended for 5 years out.
You might know that amount, but what it gets
The reason it's
expended to
changing is
might
because
be-
parts of it are already being taken out and applied in other places.
Right,
Yeah.
in the
I-
rec area, in the
Yeah.
rec funds, yep.
In
It's not an
park-
accounting
in
of it in the same
Parks
way.
and recreation,
Oh, no, I
or parks, if, however.
So then in coming up with the amounts in here, you're making an assumption about kind of what would come from the rec fund that's in the other fund columns?
Right,
Okay.
That's
And-
right.
these projects are based on money coming out of there, and what I'm hearing is it may or may not come out of there. There may or may not be anything to apply to that fund.
It's, we've used all we can from the rec fund, that 50 grand annually plus the 20 grand for operation surplus. I assumed 40, but it sounds like it's going to get knocked down to 20. So we've used all that money, and we use quite a bit of AB 939 funding,
Right.
for instance, for the playground
Which is
and
great.
other Fund 31 money.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's really what had to get bumped out. You can see the playground down below, that we were overtaxing the whole capital improvement fund significantly. So it has to go out until the future paving program, and which was pretty heavily funded at that time. So we were short $230,000 or so, so we had to knock back
In the
paving
paving.
a little bit. Mhm.
Okay.
So that's an initial proposal that the council will have to consider. It's further out, but
What is further out? Because
Uh,
it's not on here.
if you look on the flip page, yeah, it's the first line on the second page. Design in 2021, so design 3 years out,
Okay.
and then construction in 21, 22. And with the way we did that in the summer,
And so the money for that, the 25,000 in 2021, that you haven't broken that out by, oh, there you are, by fund, okay.
yeah, I mean, we do show over there 80,000 from Fund 31
Mm-hmm.
and 255 from other fund. I think it was 80,000 from AB 939, and then it was, let's
Because
see.
we'll have replenished some of that by then.
100,000 in hopeful grant money, and then I think it was 50 grand maybe from rec department, rec fund.
Okay. And that's
So-
the part that we won't know until we know whether it's, the 50 is there every year, it's the other part that we won't know about, okay,
Right.
all right.
So at a kind of a high level, looking at this, it looks like, over the next 4 years, really the multi-sport courts would be like the big thing.
The
that-
attainable goal?
The attainable goal, yes. And it sounds, I'd like to hear if anyone isn't on board with that, but that does sound like that's been the priority from us.
And then the other projects as well, right? We're talking about the bike park, which is outside funding. We're talking about the sewer
Right.
line in Libby, the Libby restrooms. We're talking about the roofing. We're talking
Right.
about
So,
the light
yeah,
poles.
sorry, excluding the kind of more maintenance type.
Right, okay, not quite as
projects, which we-
exciting, yeah, right.
Yeah.
It's always nice, it's exciting for us for the roofs not to leak and be
Yeah.
taken care
Yes,
of,
yeah,
right? So,
no.
but the,
A new project.
but yeah, would you really notice, right, the restrooms are pretty noticeable, those would be big.
Yeah.
But it would be we'd be adding capacity to our system,
Right.
something new. you know.
Right, it's not like a new facility that wasn't there.
We'd be able to do more programming, there'd be more, yeah, there's just a lot, it's different.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so I know this is confusing. I don't know if commissioners have any questions for Mr. Grant. Okay. Anything else you want to go over?
I don't think so, no, that's it,
Thanks for the update.
okay.
So you'll make
Thank you.
those changes with moving
Right,
things towards the
and
multi-sport.
as a budget, there's a budget workshop next week with the council. So I think we're getting into the final flush of the budget to really work out exactly how much is remaining in these funds and how much we'll have. Usually it's pulled back, not, oh, we got extra money. So, I wouldn't expect we'll have extra, but I like the idea you've allocated those monies over that, yeah, I guess we had the renovation and the floor, yeah. So those are two easy ones to allocate over, to make sure that basketball court happens, yeah. I'm sorry, the multi-sport court. Okay,
If you
so-
would.
Right, yeah,
Either way is fine.
right, okay,
There is a budget workshop on June 6th,
right.
Tuesday.
Right, with the council, right, that's right.
Great.
All right, thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
And then the next item, the Upper Libby Park restroom concepts. Also, Mr.
Right.
Grant.
Oh, and so before we jump to that, I noticed we have someone in our audience that is Rick, Joy, is Rick going to be making his way over soon, like in the next 5 minutes, you think, huh? Okay. I just want to let you know, Rick will be here. We want to recognize him for his years of service, teaching youth and adult tennis. So we'll just go along with the next discussion item, but when Rick Thompson arrives, we'll take a break
take a
for
break.
a presentation.
Sounds good.
All right, through passing out the concepts there. And unfortunately, we didn't be able to move this one too far because we don't have any commitments. We have interest from the Ojai Civic Association. They're interested but want more detail. That's what this plan provides. And so we're working with them on approaches. And I don't have cost on the plans, but let me run through option number 1. So everybody's got option 1. And on the left, that's the existing restroom floor plan. So to orient you, that would be looking north. So you walk into the doors there, and there's these utility room in the center that you kind of come off of the creek area there to get into next to the little trail. So, and I'm sorry, yeah, right, okay, so if you look on the left, that's the men's room, right? We've got 2 toilet partitions, and we've got 2 urinals side by side with 2 sinks. And then for the women's room, we've got 3 toilets with 2 sinks. And then if you look over here for a floor plan, if we were current ADA, that's what it shows on the right. So that's what happens there is we go to 2 plus 1 for the men, 2 toilets, 1 urinal, the 2 sinks. And then we have, for the women, it stays the same. It's 3 toilets, 2 sinks. So that would be just strictly coming up to current ADA standards. We actually lose ground a little bit, basically. But we would go through a full remodel, tile, fixtures, and everything inside. And that is approximately $200,000. We've never detailed it out because we haven't locked in a design approach yet. Now, if you go to Libby option 2, this is a replacement of the building, and that was approximately, let's see, at the same roof line, basically, the same footprint for the building. So this one, you can see up there for the men's, there's 4 toilets, 5 urinals, with 1 central sink area. And then if you go to the next one down, make sure I've got this right. Yeah, okay. Okay, so if you go to the next one down, there's, for the women's, there's 9 partition toilets with 2 sink areas. And so this approach would fit the same footprint, but the doors are not locking doors. The problem with this approach is that you don't lock the doors, so you've got all of these toilets open. It's a real maintenance headache every time trying to keep up with all these.
There's no door at all.
There's, it's partitioned in a way that, there's partition doors, but they don't lock.
Why can't they lock?
So let me just flip to the next one to continue on this. So this is about
They lock from
1,000.
the outside, or they don't lock from the inside?
I'm sorry, the partition's locked, but the next one provides lockable doors that we can lock off, We're on number 3 now, yeah. And number 3 is a concept you see sometimes at beaches and so on. They might have individual doors that lock off on the outside. And they have problems with those in that sometimes people lock the door and they hang out in the area. Like you might have some maybe homeless or other issues where people actually kind of move into the door area, so there's kind of a problem. So this approach here actually is somewhat like that. It has lockable doors. And the advantage here is that we can there's a signage that you put on the doors and say, not in use. And you can just provide, similar to what we have right now, kind of 4 total toilets and urinals available most of the time with the rest of them locked off. And then you open up the other toilets and urinals when you need them for big events on weekends and so on.
Okay.
So this is kind of a solution that works. This has actually got 9 total stalls for the men and 9 for the women. And so this is a concept that meets the total demands of the bowl, the 9 and 9. And it's a little bit bigger footprint. It went from 1,000 square feet to 1,400 square feet.
And again, maybe it's just me. My concern with the floor plan is nine areas, but 1 sink.
Right. Well, 2 for the women. So-
Of course. But those, I don't understand. I mean, it just doesn't seem like
Yeah.
that would work real
Well,
well.
oh, keep in mind, this is that type of sink that has, you can have 3 or 4
It's a
people at
bigger.
it.
Trough.
Oh, okay, all right.
Yeah, it's not a single sink. That
Sorry, if we could pause.
Oh, yeah.
We've got Mr. Thompson here.
okay.
Pat?
That me?
you're
Yeah.
gonna-
Rick Thompson's here, and Rick and I go back a long way.
Centuries, I think.
I think 40 years, or close.
79.
That was the first year you were here, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we've been friends a while, and Rick may or may not remember this, but I think that was the year that I won my first club championship, and I spent a week with you working on certain things to beat the guy that I beat. And I don't know if you remember that or not. It was more important to me than it was to you, but but that's how long Rick and I have known each other. And then Rick worked at the Racket Club for many years. That's where I first met you. And then I was running the tennis program for the city. I left that. Rick kind of came in for me after I took over for Helen, who had been there 20 years maybe. I'm not sure how many years. So, and Rick's continued to build the program, and in all the years you've done this, which is 22? 21? 21.
21 years.
Out there, yes.
Yeah. Always, and I was out of the area for a few years, but nothing but good things from anybody that's participated in the program. You should be aware of that. The program's continued to flourish, if not grown in the years, probably has grown in the years that Rick's been here. So it's a huge loss for the city that you're leaving. It's a bummer for everybody. I know it's good for you, right? That's the plan. But we, from the city and especially the Parks and Rec Commission, just wanted to recognize you for the 21 years that you've been running the tennis program. So we have a plaque that says, in appreciation of Rick Thompson for 21 years of outstanding service as head tennis professional with the City of Ojai Recreation Department in 2017, and more importantly, a city pin.
Wonderful.
So,
Well, thank you so much.
no, Rick, thanks very much. And I know you currently came from work
Yes.
to get this, so
Yes, right off the course.
that's
So,
wonderful.
Hey, thank you so much. That's really nice.
Yeah, and we're just, wish you a lot of luck.
Great, great. Well, thank you.
Thank you, Rick.
Yeah,
Rick,
thanks.
thank you.
Thank you very much.
Would you like to say anything, Rick? Do you want to say anything on your own behalf? You can.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Excellent. But I just want to say it's been a real honor to be out there. It's been as you probably are well aware, a beautiful park. It's probably one of the most beautiful parks in the country. Also, the fact that we have the Ojai tournament there, they keep it really well done. Everything is good. The lights there are about the best in the county. So it's been it's been a wonderful facility there. And we also have a very great clientele too. Over the years, I've been very fortunate to have a great group of kids, a great group of adults, and they have been very supportive. They've been, I just go out there and started doing what I was doing, and they kind of helped the whole thing grow. And I would just happen to be there while they did that. So
Yeah.
it's been a pleasure. It's been a lot of years, and it's been a lot of fun years. So yeah. Thank you so much for that. Thank you.
Thanks again,
Thank
Rick,
you.
for everything.
Yeah.
Thank you. But, hey, yeah, we could do that. We
should do
could
that.
break for a quick, do a photo op here. I'll
that would
do
be
a
good.
quick picture. Would you mind, Rick, taking a
Oh, sure.
photo with the commission? Maybe I'll stand up in the back and I'll swing around and take a picture.
Am I here? Wow.
stopped and started it before, so I'm afraid to do that.
Let me get some pictures of you guys. Okay.
This is
Just Rick.
Also, Joy is retiring too. She started the Quick Start program 4.5 years ago.
Yeah, we should say something about Joy.
Yeah, and she's
Yeah.
also going to be leaving us, so.
Yeah.
It's quick start, like
Yeah.
for kids to get a
I
quick
had
grip on
no
it or something like
choice.
that.
Yeah, it's for the little ones.
He made her.
Yeah,
So it's their
yeah,
first-
exactly.
Married in.
But you should get in the picture.
But you should go,
Yeah.
I can't see everybody
Yeah.
back here. Can you
Yeah.
come go around? Allison, you've been
Fun.
What?
student, go,
Yeah, yeah.
Soccer,
Okay.
please, get in there.
Yeah,
Well,
you
let me
get
take
it.
a picture and then
I'll get
talk.
one of you.
No, you
Okay.
should be in there.
All right.
Let's get it,
And-
let's get the team in right
Okay,
away.
I'll go stand next to Allison, I guess. and-
Are we in?
Almost. Little softly, please. That's it. All right. I'm gonna count to 3. 1, 2, 3. Another one. 1, 2, 3. I think those are good ones.
Okay. We'll find out.
Thank you guys for all
Check it out.
Colorado Springs, actually.
Oh, that sounds really nice too.
Yeah.
Colorado Springs, is that what you have?
Colorado Springs.
It's weird, but you know what they don't
Garden
have?
of the Gods.
This is Mike Taggart told me the story. He used to live there.
We used to have vacation
They
there
have
every
bugs up
summer.
to 6,000 feet.
We lived in
Whole
Kansas
cities
City
from
and
7,000
No
feet.
bugs.
No bugs.
No skeeters.
I've
Yeah.
not seen any bugs
Time in
for
Colorado
That is a
Springs.
lovely benefit.
But you will get some snow.
Times.
Get some snow, yes. Yes.
Congratulations.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
All right.
Rick,
Well,
when's getaway day?
Not till the end of July. Actually, we're doing a summer
good.
program, and I'm going to stay a little longer.
That's good.
Joy's leaving in a couple of weeks here, about 2 weeks, and then I'm going to stay for another 5, 6 weeks after that. So I'll be leaving the very 1st of August. So.
good. Good luck to you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I've run the tennis program for 20 years or so.
Now,
Yeah. so-
back from our break from bathrooms.
Back to the bathrooms.
Well, I'll just add, in his absence, I mean, thousands of students taught, literally thousands of hours on those courts, thousands of students, 6 days a week, really, like Monday through Saturday.
And he was here during the instrumental time that we became Tennis Town.
Yeah.
I mean, and
Yeah,
that was
he
a huge deal.
That was a big
Yeah.
deal. And I guess I'll take this opportunity. I last minute invited Ojai Valley Tennis Club, Jacob Voss, to come to the meeting. He wasn't able to make it, but I want to thank the Ojai Valley Tennis Club, too, for supporting youth tennis in the valley. As you may or may not know, they provide scholarship monies that pay for half of the program fees for any youth that want to take tennis through the city. So
Very
we
nice.
thank the Ojai Valley Tennis Club for all their support over the years that Rick has been teaching.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Very nice. Thank you for doing
Yeah,
that.
thanks.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, can I ask a bathroom question now?
All right. Back
All right.
Back to it.
Back to the restrooms. Okay. So, just so that I clearly understand, option 2, the stall doors don't lock individually.
They lock from the
Inside.
inside like any other restroom.
Right, but you
Yeah.
can't you can't, and from the outside lock them. Okay. Now, and it's not multi-use, because basically I'm looking at number 3, realizing that women could go on either side. Which is
Excuse me?
because if you look at it, everything has a stall, even the urinals.
Yeah, that is unusual to have.
Doors, I'm
I-
just looking at that going, that's interesting, and I have to ask at a certain point, which is, I know a funny question, would it be better to even make more toilets so that they're all unisex, so that you could go to either side? Because we all know that at events, the women are the ones always waiting in line. So it's just a thought, because I mean, if you're already able to lock everything down and open everything up, would it be beneficial to make even more toilets on the other side, so that when it's during the events, you're not worrying about who's on what side? Just a question.
It's a good point. No, it's a good point, and I really haven't been able to flesh this one out too carefully, but I kind of,
You did there? I got it.
So that was that was my question about it. But
I'll let it melt. No, okay. So-
But so on the women's side, you would lock down some of them. On the men's side, in option 2, you couldn't lock down anyway, because it doesn't have the partitions. And so adding the partitions is why it goes from 1084 to 1400.
and I'm recalling a brief discussion I had with the architect about it, was that my concern was if you went to kind of what they have at some of the beach areas, where they have all stalls, toilets, with doors on them, and you do an outside sink, you lose that kind of privacy. A lot of people like to wash their hands and, do their hair or something like that. So in this atmosphere, it's a little more like that, maybe at the bowl or something like that. People would prefer to be able to have a mirror and a little privacy. So that's kind of where we had separated. But if we went to an approach where it was kind of unisex and it was just all stalls, and then I know we were looking at, is there a way we could just have a separate little hand washing area for men or women or something like that, So we hadn't quite got there. I think this was just the general concept to have a lockable, lock-off portions of it when you don't need the load, you could, and I mean, I guess I've seen that. I mean, I think at least 7 years ago, I was at some place in Santa Barbara that had just all the stalls for men and women mixed.
Well,
it's pretty unusual, but I guess it's sort of legal.
It's not going to be anymore. I mean, in all reality, we're going this way anyway, and it's going to need to be addressed, and it's coming up all over the place. So if you alleviate a need for even having it, it's a simplification of all of it anyway, so.
I kind of come at it from a little bit of a different direction. I think we're not necessarily headed in that direction, but the transgender thing, which is going to be the issue. I'm be really security conscious over events where alcohol is served and you've got men and women. I think that's just asking for a problem, to me. That's asking for a problem to come. And do we want to deal with that now or wait till we have to? That's my concern.
Yeah, are 9 stalls enough? I don't know.
Yeah. It's going to become an issue, I think.
Well, and there's a real difference between having all the stalls on the outside and a sink outside than having a space inside with stalls.
Yeah, I'm just more concerned about the safety for the females going into an area where there's going to be people that are intoxicated, and sometimes bad things can happen, and that's where I'd rather err on the side of caution in that regard than err the other way.
I have to tell you, though, there are so many women who go to the men's all the time, as it is now.
I don't disagree with that.
Especially, I've seen it here at Ojai many times, so
We're talking about a different kind of entity here. When we don't segregate them, a lawsuit can potentially say we invited an issue in the first place.
Yeah, I don't know that I agree from my perspective, but I hear what you're saying. I don't know that I feel that way.
I hope there might be a hybrid option that would be the stalls that are more solid and they are lockable. I mean, you can lock them from the inside, and we have pretty good luck with low vandalism and all that. So maybe it's just some kind of a separate lock that with a key on it that locks off that stall.
And hopefully it'll say in use, and you won't have to put a sign up, and you just get one that you click and from your side, and it's locked.
It's locked off, yeah.
It's obvious.
I mean, I guess we want to make sure it doesn't appear to be in use, that people are waiting. I guess they can always look under the door, but it should say not available or whatever. You lock it off, and it's off. And then, of course, people are desperate or whatever, they might just slide under the door and use it. But there is certain security benefits you're talking about, that if you have these individual stalls, there's potential security issues, right?
Yeah.
Now you go in there and somewhere between any issue, right, that happens, you've got not only you go into that woman's restroom, but they're all locked doors, so I think it's better to have it open with the partitions.
Yeah,
approach,
and just to go back to the other point, I see what you're saying, Sage, about I think culturally that's probably the way to go, but I think part of our job here is to also look at protecting the city from anything that might happen, and that's where you gotta, at least I feel like we have to weigh
there's
that.
precedent for it. I don't think we're going out on a limb. That's my personal experience. I've seen places that have things like this, so so that's a liability question that I can't answer.
Right, neither can I. I'm just putting it out there.
Yeah.
Something to look at.
So I would be glad to look into, and it seems like a good approach, that option 2 has the partitions that could be, to a lockable hybrid partition, a higher quality partition. Maybe they're steel. I know a lot of people have gone to that stainless steel partition that's got the washed surface, the random sanded paper surface, so it's hard to vandalize. Then I guess the obvious question is, how do you do that to a urinal? And that's what option 3 did from 2, right? They put so maybe
I'm just gonna
Yeah,
come
it
back
kind
to-
of goes back to the idea of, if you're going to put partitions on each one, they appear to be almost the same width. Maybe you land up with toilets. Urinals are lower maintenance than a toilet.
Okay, another question on that one is the locking. So the perception is you won't have all of them unlocked unless you're having an event.
Right.
Okay. And you're only planning to leave 3 unlocked when there's not an event? That's kind of the thought?
I think the existing was, the original existing, right, was 4 on the men's side, 3 on the women's, which seems to be, I've never heard of any complaints,
Well,
non-event.
it's all we've ever had.
Right, right.
To say we haven't had complaints when we only had this is what we had, I don't know if that's.
I guess what I mean by that is.
Nicer to have more.
I never see a line at the restroom. You don't
No.
see that unless there's an event, even on some of those weekends we have our playground packed.
Yeah.
I don't see a line there. Mhm. So that's 4 plus 3, so yeah, would we go, and I mean, when you talk about hybrid, I'm sure even for the urinal stalls, right, there's something a little creative we could do at the urinal stall where the partition stub wall comes out that you just put up a plate that locks onto it and it blocks them off. So that hybrid thing would probably work. We could have doors that could lock off, and we could try to work with this lower square footage, which helps our price out. Let me just throw out the pricing too, that ballpark. It really depends a lot on features and quality, but they're usually very expensive. Restrooms, public facilities are commercially designed and set up for anti-vandalism. So just to remodel, we're in the $200,000 range. Option 2 there, we're in the, option 2 was about 450,000.
Wow.
So you go up, I mean, that's basically removing the entire structure and replacing it. Now, if you go to option 3, where we got individual stall walls and all that, it goes up to like 560. And then if you go to your last option, this is a combo, right? That's the one. That's my button. I don't know if we really ran through this much. The last option was the existing restrooms retroed to current ADA standards, with a separate facility next to it. So now the retroed is 3 on the men's side, 3 on the women's side, and then you'll end up with 6 and 6 on the new facility. So still 9 and 9 total, just like all the other options were.
If you're going to build a completely new and different one, the thought process is to put it here just because it's easy for the sewer and all that, because if you're going to do a whole new one, wouldn't it be easier to put it within somewhere toward where you can get to it from the bowl? Because there's certain spaces over there you might be able to put it in.
You could do, when you walk past the tennis courts towards the bike trail.
Yeah,
You
that's
could do
what
it
I'm
behind the
thinking.
bleachers over there. But I think there's a lot of events on the street or in the upper park, like there just was over the weekend, Art in the Park or the Lavender Festival, or different events where they could use these extra facilities.
Okay, well, so what would be the advantage of doing that?
So it would keep everything, for one thing, in one location for easier maintenance and monitoring. Like the one, if we put it over behind the bleachers at the bike park, the bike trail area, it's isolated, tending to see higher vandalism, other issues with the homeless and other things. So you put it all here together, sewer connection's better. There's no sewer there, that's
That's what I
significant.
was wondering, okay.
Yep. But it is all in one location, so everybody knows the restrooms are there, and you go to that one
But so
location.
what's the advantage of doing 2 buildings to doing one bigger one?
The 2 building would be, we keep the existing building open all times, and we lock off the other building except for special events.
Okay, if you're locking it off for special events, why would it be a problem to have it over on the other area?
Because of the additional,
It's the sewer line.
Yeah.
if you moved over there,
Trenching.
Okay, so it's mostly getting the services to it.
I think that's one, but I think also everybody in this upper Libby Park during all these other events, to go over to that restroom is difficult.
Well, it's not that difficult, but I'm just wondering, because in some ways it seems like it'd be nice to have for the bowl some facilities that are accessible from where you're, nearer to where you're sitting. But
It is a lot closer, it's true. Yeah, you'd
Yeah,
walk out
okay.
of the front and go to it. But a separate facility like that, yeah, I guess utilities are easy here, so that keeps the cost down. So you're going to see costs go up. I'll throw out, I'm trying to think if we have tree space and all that, but 100,000. And then I guess you'd have a sign here that says additional facilities available, go back 200 feet to the other side of the tennis courts for anything besides the bowl events.
What was the
And-
price tag on option 4?
Option 4, these are very preliminary, all right, just 600,000.
And Greg, the option 1, I guess implicit in that is a line of porta potties at special events. That's
Yes.
Yes.
It's existing bathroom plus what we have now, which is the porta potties.
I think most events now, they do kind of a less expensive porta potty for the bowl events, except for Music Festival does higher end, right? They do kind of these executive porta
Yeah,
potties,
the
right?
nice
So-
ones, yes.
Yeah. they're-
With options 2 through 4, there wouldn't be a need for porta potties?
That's correct.
Okay.
Do you know do you know how much we've spent already on getting these preliminary plans made up?
About $3,000.
That's not bad at
That's
all.
not bad at all.
We're arguing about that, but we agreed to
I've worked
around
with
that price, and they
revenue.
want to charge more.
They're a little pricey.
And I think one of the things I'd asked you was about the pros and cons of each. Are there any other pros or cons that you'd want to point out about the different designs?
I think that looking at option, the rehab is the lower cost default. And continuing with hauling restrooms in and out, not ideal. So we all know about the problems with that. Option 2, we had that hybrid I'd like to look into, if we can have them lock off. That seems like a very reasonable. It would require a fully new structure, so the design effort gets pretty extensive because it has to go through planning commission. And I guess, obviously, first Parks and Rec, then to planning, and then to the council. So, if we can do it for that 450 price range, with support, it's going to put a dent in our budget. So we're just going to tag things here for another $100,000 or so.
Or we can ask council for more money.
Or ask council. I won't do
Always
that,
an
but you can do
option.
that. So. And
Can ask.
and option 3, I think that's the one that I think we had a little security concerns and all that. So it almost seems like option 2 and 3 should be combined to a hybrid option. And then option 4, that was the separate. So I guess option 2 versus 4 is there's cost savings in option 2 to remove that building and build it in the same place. We have one facility. And is there a preference? I mean, this one takes a bigger footprint. Option 4 I'm looking at, and it costs approximately, we're saying about $150,000 extra dollars. It's a significant sum for our city, but the separate building that we open it's I guess it's a little simpler as far as maintenance. We just have the small building all the time. We keep that extra building nice and clean and ready to go.
Well, plus you wouldn't lose any downtime on the existing one, right? You just, am I understanding that right? Where with 2 and 3, you're going to have to lose use of that bathroom for an extended period.
You're going to have porta potties.
We're still, we could focus on the remodel priority, get that done, and then hop to the new building. Yeah, it'd be like a 2-phase schedule for the project, right?
Okay.
Is the remodel necessary if, with option 4? I mean, could you just build the new building and leave the existing one as it is?
I would think we could go for a real light remodel, even though that's being used all the time, so it seems like.
It
mean,
could use a remodel.
It could use remodel, better ventilation.
And it would be pretty sad if we didn't remodel the one we use all the time and build a special one.
Exactly.
But then don't let anybody use it.
I'm not up for that.
So passive.
We could give special
I'm
keys
gonna
out
tell
to
you right now.
commissioners, you know, yeah, right. So,
Yeah.
That doesn't work with my priorities.
right, exactly. But that would be the ideal setup, to keep it low use and then focus on this for special events when you open it.
Now,
for-
when you talk about the hybrid, explain to me what you mean by hybrid.
So that was back on option 2, to take the partition doors like we just put in Lower Libby
Yep.
and do a higher security doors on them that we have that sign that basically says not available something up that alley, not available, and it's locks off, and we even do that with some of the urinals as well. So we
Yeah.
keep our custodial costs low and the wear and tear cost low. And it is nice and flexible that way, I gotta say, because we do have issues in public restrooms where, especially at the skate park, where people just flush whatever they can jam in a toilet, and they purposely jam the toilet, and it causes problems for it. I mean, we've had them, road rootage, and they pull back, sneakers and different things that are jammed in there, right? So it is kind of interesting back up here that at the toilets, one or two of them went out and we just popped to the next ones and we're open.
Right.
So that is kind of a little flexibility I'm talking as I
Okay,
think
now
as I
if
go
you
here.
look at 2 as it is there really that much necessity to lock off the urinals? You said they're lower maintenance to begin with.
Well, they're lower maintenance, but they're still custodial. I mean, our custodial cost would go up. If they have to go through and clean every single urinal, they take custodial work. I mean, there's
Okay.
the
I'm just
floor
asking
underneath
this-
them as well as the toilet itself,
Because possibly as the hybrid, what you could do is lock off the women's side and not even worry about the men's side, and you'd have a slight increase in your custodial, but less of an increase in need. Because I don't know that you can get the partitions in at the 1,048 square feet. That's probably why you've gone up higher to the 1,400, isn't it?
It's because there's solid walls between the toilets.
Okay.
And then instead of the urinal. I think that's the
Got it.
primary difference,
Okay.
yeah.
So, all right.
Okay, so the difference between option 2 and 3 is
Solid walls.
more
Solid walls with
significant
solid doors.
walling. Okay.
Right.
Now, how long ago did we redo Sarzodi? It hasn't been that long. 5 years?
The new restrooms, yeah, this remodeled about 3.5.
3.5, okay.
Mm-hmm.
And they seem like they're very good there.
I know,
And they're
yeah.
lasting, I know, knock on wood, don't talk about it, but things are holding up well and they're working pretty well.
I think so. I think
And
we've
it's
had the mirrors gouged a little bit,
Oh, the
the
mirror.
mirrors gouged, and, but the partitions,
Are looking good.
Yeah.
I think so, yeah.
I mean, I've been in there, I'm impressed. I think it
Right.
looks-
I know, the skate park's the other case, a little bit older,
let's not
dryers-
compare. I think we're more comparable comparing Sarzodi to Libby than we are Libby to the skate park.
I think that the use at Libby will be heavier. Sarzadi's
Yeah.
not used, it's much heavier, yeah.
Yeah, but I don't know that it's quite the same.
Right.
But, so things are holding up pretty well. How much was that project? It wasn't
That was about 330, I think it was, 330,000.
okay.
So what do we have there? We had,
You said there's heavier use at Sarasota than.
No.
no,
at
I was
Libby.
thinking Libby
At
is much
Libby.
heavier.
Be much heavier.
Yeah.
It's regular, it's ongoing all the time between
Yeah.
the playground and downtown and
Yeah.
events.
Because it's
and
a
everything.
public restroom for downtown too, yeah.
True.
That might change somewhat with the new shade structures, the weekend use will probably jump quite a bit there, I guess.
I'll let it go. Yeah.
But it is true,
A
so
lot of
that was,
activity.
You do have a lot of activity there.
so Rim, I can't think, but do you remember those, isn't it 2 urinals, 1 toilet at the men's side, and I think it's
You're talking in,
2 stalls.
2 stalls on
Two
the
stalls,
women's
1
side.
urinal.
Yeah.
you're not talking where the backstop building is. You're
No,
talking
No,
about
the new one.
oh,
The new
oh,
ones.
The
picnic area.
The picnic area. Gosh, I want to say it's just 1 urinal, 1 stall in the man.
I think it's 2 and 1, I think it's 2.
And then
I
3 on
remember
the
it.
ladies' side?
2, and then,
Oh, two urinals.
it's just 2 stalls.
2 because of the ADA, we have an ADA,
Oh,
okay.
2
Yeah.
urinal,
All right.
1 stall.
right, so at the women's side, 2 partition toilets, and on the men's side, it's 2 plus 1.
I was just curious about the cost.
Yeah, but you're right, it's about 330
Okay,
there. So that's a good kind of a quickie check on it, right?
yeah, and those finishes are holding up well, so that's a nice level of finish that
Right.
needs to be working.
The exterior is a simple stucco
Stucco.
finish.
Yeah, I don't know that works, but,
Mm-hmm. We'd probably, I don't know if we want a copy, we have to take a look, but it's got that kind of, it's got the Spanish style roof and all that there. Those
Yeah.
costs go up. So it's got a little bit higher level of architecture at Libby.
yeah.
But it is,
That was an aside, I was just curious, because it's
I guess our baseline is,
relatively-
yeah, there's more here, so that probably is about right if we're saying
Okay.
these cost ballpark comparatively about right. So which is really in the $350 to $400 per square foot for public restrooms.
Okay. Well, I like the big sinks. I think that's a great way to go.
What's that?
More of the trough sinks. I think that's I think that makes a lot of sense. Fewer but bigger.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, I actually, I like 2, option 2.
The revised hybrid of 2, right?
Whatever makes most sense from a maintenance standpoint, I'm going to defer to your expertise. But as far as closing them down, I mean, if you didn't have to go to the effort of doing the men's side, fine, and then you just do it to the women's side, which you need to do.
Right.
That would seem workable to me, but
So this is kind of it's in between option 2 and 3,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's kind of,
So you're saving where you can, because it's a lot of money.
yeah.
And if the urinals are, yes, you have to clean them, and it's a little extra, but it's nothing like having to clean multiple stalls, I would think, from a maintenance standpoint.
So would it be reasonable to assume, then that if you went the hybrid route, that the cost would fall somewhere between the price you quoted for 2 and the price you quoted for 3?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah, and it's a smaller building if you're just looking at
Yeah,
square
yeah.
footage, so.
yeah.
Right.
But we're doing a little bit more
Yeah.
stuff.
The partition, yeah, whether that's
Okay.
custom or not, yeah.
Okay. I agree with Sage on 2 then, with the hybrid. That's me.
I guess the price differential there is only about 100,000, so, yeah.
And what is the footprint of the existing structure?
I guess we didn't have square footage on there, but it's shown in the original plan there. It was about 35 by 40 foot, 35 by 40. And this one's at 36 by 35.
So it's pretty close.
So about the same.
Yeah, so it's in there, and that has major benefits too. I mean, there's certain critics of the park expanding footprints into
Exactly.
additional tree impacts
Yeah.
and
That's a,
You
squeezing
know
out
that it's
whatever
there,
green
you know
space
that
we
you can
have.
put it there, it works, yeah.
Right.
right. I definitely had concerns about expanding footprint for the
Yeah.
restrooms. Seems good.
Which is really what 4 does, absolutely, right? It takes the
Yeah.
full,
Yeah.
much bigger footprint, really lends up,
Well,
if there's any soil between the two, it's kind of lost in a way, it's not useful.
I just don't think it's attractive.
Right,
If you were gonna do it and tuck it back in the corner, then you wouldn't see it, and it wouldn't impact the park or the space usage, but up front, right there next to another building.
Right. So Commissioners Gilbert, Jacobson, any
Yeah, I
comments?
prefer the hybrid for option 2. I just don't see the use of having 2 buildings for option 4. I just think that's a waste of money and maintenance time, so.
I agree. Well, option 4, I think, is a good use of the existing structure, but it's unsightly. It's a weird plan. It can confuse people who've been drinking probably. It would confuse me probably. I like option 2 as far as the overall plans go. It's less of a footprint. Seems like a simpler design, concrete block walls. You have a little bit less space on the interior. I don't know if that's because of wall thickness for partitions. 42 compared to 3611. I think it would be a little easier on the maintenance too, in my opinion.
So it sounds like we're all on the same page.
okay.
Right.
I appreciate that. I'll pursue a hybrid in option 2. And obviously, this is strictly a floor plan, and we would, it's somewhat cosmetic on the outside, right? The architectural details, what it looks like out there. If, at this point, I think the goal is to try to present this to the Ohio Civic Association and see if we can gain their support.
Yeah.
And if they do, certainly helps a lot on the dent of cost, right? And then I guess, like we're saying, we'll go back and see if the council and otherwise we can find funding for it.
Yeah, I should add, sorry, from Commissioner Dutter, who couldn't be here tonight. He did send me an email and said that he liked the idea of one building with 8 to 12 individual bathrooms, like the ones at the beach.
So that they're non-gender specific, just
Right.
units.
Yeah.
I keep looking at this and I wonder if you did that, you could actually close off one side and you wouldn't need as much partitioning. I mean, that is a way to look at it. You could still close one part off and not have to deal with it and just leave one side open as all unisex bathrooms.
Right.
But, because I really like that. Like even in option 2,
Right.
you could just close a door and then have one side totally closed off. You would not have urinals, which I get, but you could have, all these stalls and use
So-
it that way.
I guess that's a good point of discussion, it's kind of like, it's a little bit sensitive area here, how you talk about people, how they use restrooms, right? But, so if you did that, if you just said women's, call it the unisex area and close off the men's.
Yeah.
I mean, our approach would be these fortified partitions. So it does mean that the stalls are open underneath and so on. So you've got men and women sitting next to each other at partitions, or children and men or women sitting next to each other at partitions.
Or maybe you hybridize it yet again and put solid on one side, don't worry about the other, and just close off one. Because the women's doesn't, well, I don't know how much more space that takes.
It is true that some places have gone to that, but I mean, if you put full depth doors, you've got privacy, but you also have potential security issues, not to mention some people kind of move into them and lock them off and so on. You have security. Sometimes these things are locked off and they can't get in there, and it's people are trying to spend the night, a cold night or something in there,
But if you're shutting them down at night, which you do anyway, right?
Police shuts them down at the end if they can fit it in their schedule, yeah.
So sometimes they're shut, sometimes they're not.
I think in general they are, and not always though. And it becomes, you know what I mean? So now normally a guy just comes up, an officer, and says, bathroom's clear, locks the main door. In this case, he checks each stall. Hey, you're done in there? Hurry up, get out, move out of there. The door's locked. Is somebody in there? Is the door just locked, or what's going on? And so clearing it at the end of the night becomes trickier. And it makes it much harder to mop it and clean it. When you've got an open floor, you can mop through and clean everything much easier. And
So
pressure
from a
wash.
maintenance standpoint, option 2 is just easier.
Maintenance and operation of it, yeah. The open stalls versus a wall stall. A walled individual
Like an
toilet.
individual.
Mhm.
And the reason for not doing an outdoor individual one is too hard to police? Because like you see the ones that are a big circle with a sink here and a sink there kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. I think that has the same issues where the individual cleaning of them, and you got the individuals, people clearing the area and getting people out of the stalls, and you don't get the privacy for sinks and mirrors and all that kind of stuff. They could be handy if you're using it at the bowl or events in the downtown area. It kind of brings up the kind of the level of class a little bit instead of just having that common outdoor sink that you use real quick,
Yeah. I still like that idea, but of the ones presented.
Right.
But I just think, thinking about that, if you can come up with a creative way to make it happen, that seems just so easy to just shut down one side and have one side open most of the time and then open another side for events, but.
Well, so that would be kind of really we're looking at option 2, that's where we're going to do
Yep.
So option 2, you're saying you would eliminate urinals or.
No, you just leave them, but you only have it open for when you have an event.
Mm-hmm.
And then make the other side, I don't know, it might not work, something to think about.
Yeah, I mean,
I
it
haven't
seems like
spent
you
a
would
lot
use
of
the
time
women's
thinking
side as
about
kind of the open all the time, right?
Yeah, you would, because it has the most flexibility.
And I guess that goes back to the question, is it important to have is it okay to have the men and women
Full walls or no, yeah.
mixing stalls, and you would lose the privacy at the sink and the mirrors?
Yep. Well, you've gotten feedback.
Right, right. So based on that, I think I would, I think the Ojai Civic Association was interested in more information, so
Yep.
I'll present that to them with the hybrid and talk with our architect a little bit on how it
And they
affects
may have
cost. and all
feedback too,
that. Right, right.
specific feedback
That's
after
where-
they look at it, so.
Right, but
Between-
it seems like kind of higher level, keep roughly the same footprint.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't
I think
need
that's
the super heavy duty block wall partitions if there are simpler ways to lock off,
Right.
and features that keep the maintenance load down, like the simpler partitions, sound good.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that would help a lot. If we have 9 stalls open on each side, each one just gets lightly used.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, I think anybody who has, and I remember went from 1 restroom in our house to 2, twice as much work. They both get used, they both get dirty, and it was like, it sure was easy. We had 1 restroom, wasn't it? So now you have 9 stalls and all the issues that go on in public restrooms. It's quite a bit of additional custodial.
Well, whether you did, to Commissioner Ender's point, the unisex one with X number of stalls, or the split, you're still going to be cleaning the same number of stalls. It's just a question of
Right.
which way it is. I'm
Yeah,
getting
no,
that
that's,
right,
I mean,
right?
and even if you did both sides identical
Yeah.
and opened one only when you needed it, then you're keeping your cleaning to one place, one
Yeah.
side, this number.
I just have to get I'm not sure my head's going to wrap around the,
You know, and it's something I
just
don't.
from the,
Yeah.
not just from the cultural part, from the issues that may spring from that. That's just me.
It might be something interesting to do, reach out to other agencies to see if how they've done bathrooms and what's succeeded and what hasn't, if they'll answer back through the rec, organizations.
Yeah.
Just to see. I mean, the beaches do it, but beach is a whole beach culture kind of thing, so it's a little different to begin with. But it would be interesting to see what people come back with. And places that do like festival kinds of things and how they expand and contract, because, I don't know.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Exciting.
All right, yeah, that's,
Not the amount of money, mind you, but
restrooms, I think they're the most
I
painful
know.
thing for any park,
I
right? They're the
know.
most expensive thing to build and maintain. They take a lot of effort and cost, so yeah. All right, well, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Greg.
Okay, next on our agenda is item 8C, CPR and first aid requirements. So last time, we got a report from Sophocles about kind of current levels of coverage. And we also kind of clarified that it is kind of within the commission's role to make recommendations to the council if we care to on policy. So we're kind of reopening up this discussion about the CPR and first aid at the rec department and rec programming. And so, we can talk about strategies if we have a policy recommendation or just more requests for information, whatever that is. Okay, so I don't know, Sophocles, did you
Yeah,
wanna-
I mean, we're all ears as to what your recommendations would be as to what kind of level of CPR and first aid trained staff you want. Does it need to be at a 50% level? Should it be all full-time staff and not necessarily, part-time staff? Or how is it going to be paid for?
Right.
you
And
want the city to pay for the training? Should it be all contractors
Yeah.
or just employees? And if it is contractors, are we just going to have them pay for the certification and they don't have to pay for the actual, it's not like taking a recreation class where we charge $100. They would only pay for the cost for the certification of, I don't know what
$27.
$27. So those are the kind of things you could be thinking about, like what, is it 100%? We'd like to see every, employee and contractor be 100% certified, or there needs to be at least this many people on site. There needs to be 50% of people on site that have CPR and first aid training. So I'm not suggesting any of those things,
Right.
just those are the kind of maybe recommendations we're looking for, or maybe that's what you're
yeah,
needing to, or might feel comfortable with as far as what
right.
should we be doing out there?
Yeah, and let me just, Commissioner Dutter also had a comment on this, which I'll read out. He said, I think all full-time staff should be CPR certified within the first 90 days. All seasonal, contractor, and part-time should be certified within 30 days. So there's.
Within
With-
all seasonal and say that again.
All seasonal, contractor, and part-time should be certified within 30 days.
Of their start date? I
I,
would assume that's what that
I
means.
think so, yeah.
So, sorry, full-time was within how many days?
9.
90 days. So that's, kind of gives you a taste of what the recommendation could be.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Allison, have you had luck with the online? Have you guys made any progress? Have you had time?
No, so long story short, I'm no longer certified to teach.
Oh.
So we are working on potentially trying to get me, as Renee was saying, they've changed a lot of their requirements, and in the shuffle of everything, turning over and changing, my certification lapsed. And so we're looking at potentially getting me recertified. Right now we're doing trainings through JPIA, or
Okay.
insurance provider. So we're actually doing one on Sunday, but they don't do the online option.
So you are planning on getting recertified?
That is the hope and plan, yes.
Okay.
I need to look into the requirements.
Timing and what it
And
takes.
did-
We do have 12 people. Are they all recreation staff?
Yeah, 11 recreation and 1 city hall.
Yeah, so we are doing this Sunday through our JPIA a CPR and first aid training.
Did we get feedback from other recreation departments on what their requirements are?
No.
Because it seems to me, I'm sorry.
There was some research done.
I think you emailed out and didn't receive much response.
Much feedback, but
Yeah.
most of the feedback is it's not required, but no one kind of came back and said what Adam just proposed, like, yes, within 90 days we have, you have to have it done, or within
Right.
30 days you have to have it done. There wasn't that sense from when I did reach out to the CPRS groups. It was more vague.
I think it was the JPIA, though, you did have a response from, which wasn't that you
Yeah.
have to do it, but it's definitely
It's
best practices.
Best practice.
And
right.
so the takeaway on that is it's better to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there's no legal requirement.
Really?
Right.
This comes back to the different industries have different requirements.
Right.
Yeah.
Whereas daycare has very specific requirement, there's different.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
if-
am
if we
speaking
were-
off, but I mean, there might have been like one. There needs to be one. I can't. I don't even think it was that.
According to our insurance provider, I don't
Right.
think there was any. If we were to try to become like a licensed childcare
Right.
facility, there's requirements, but as a
But part of the language.
city operating in this capacity, there's not a legal.
But part of the language was, but it's better
Well,
if you do.
That's
So
my,
that's-
that's my fears. We're one event away from something terrible. It would seem like a perfect practice would be to have everybody certified. I mean, that should absolutely be the goal, 100%. How we get there may be a different thing. I think we were discussing at one point that they were paid to train at their hourly rate for however that much training is, and we offered a couple of days prior to their employment to do that. Was that not
Say
discussed?
that again a couple of days prior.
They
They get paid for the actual, when they
The
do
time.
a training, they
Right.
get paid for that time to be at that training.
Right.
And we cover the cost of getting that certification
Right.
to the actual card, the actual.
And wasn't their training offered before their hire date? Their actual work date, like, is that not possible?
We haven't done that. I mean,
Okay.
if a training lined up so that we're, hiring someone in the
Gotcha.
training, we would, I imagine, but.
And it's complicated
Yeah.
by the fact that you're talking part-time,
Mm-hmm.
full-time, seasonal, and contract. And I don't think they're all the same. And
I
I
agree.
think particularly, the goal should be 100%
Mm-hmm.
as a goal. But like with contract, I think it'd be lovely to offer them the class for free and the certification for free. But I don't think we're trying to require that. I think the best practice is just to give them as many opportunities as possible and support them in doing it.
I do have a concern. From what we heard last time, there are classes where no one has, there are events or programs where no one is certified. We heard there were a few gaps, and some of those were the contractor ones.
A
And
couple
some
of the
Some of
offsite,
the contracted
offsite.
off-site
Right.
classes, that's correct.
So that's like, for me, that's kind of the practical concern. It's not that how many people have training or not, but the fact that we have programs where no one is trained is
So you could
concerning.
even differentiate between contractors on-site and off-site.
Yeah.
Because if you're a contractor on-site, we have staff that are definitely trained on-site.
Right, and again, there's
On-site.
this distinction. You could have someone on site, but not in the room, where something might
Which
happen. which is
if you're
something-
doing something in our rec center,
Yeah. It's
You
not
can
that
yell,
big. Yeah.
and they will hear you.
Right.
Yeah, you're only talking
So,
100.
yeah.
Within a
But
few-
those are kind of the levels of coverage. Is there someone in the same room that is certified? Is there someone in the same facility that's
yelling distance.
certified?
Right.
You know, is there no one
Right.
around that's
Are
certified?
you off-site,
Right.
which is a,
Yeah, on
Yeah.
or offsite or, yeah.
So those are for me, my biggest concern is those times when there's no one around that might be certified.
Well, and I think what we did tonight with Rick, I mean, his program's off-site. If somebody were to have an issue at Libby Park, and I'm not saying Rick is or isn't, because I don't know,
I don't-
but if
I
there's-
believe he is.
I believe he is too, but
No, I don't, but I do
I don't
not
Really?
believe he is.
That would be interesting. I thought he would be. But if there's not somebody there that's certified, I just think that puts the recreation department in a really bad position. And again, legally, I don't know what that is. And legally and morally, there's two different statements there, but
Not to say that, well, they keep care of their own insurance, so we don't have to worry about injury or properly helping an injured person. But they do have their own insurance. They carry their own liability insurance.
contractors.
As the independent contractors do, yes. But that doesn't mean it's okay for them not to have the training, but it's requiring an independent, how do you get to that point where require an independent contractor
Yeah.
to have that training by saying, okay, we as a commission want to, this is our recommendation is that you will invite them to trainings. They won't pay, they don't have to pay for the training, they don't have to pay for their certification. We won't pay them for their time, of course, because they're independent contractors, but we'll pay for their training. I'm not saying that's what you're going to say we should do, but it's not our current, we don't
you don't have
invite
policy
them.
about it.
We don't invite them to our CPR and first aid trainings because we don't have a cost, like the training that we're doing on Sunday, it's free to employees, but
Yeah.
not offered to contractors currently.
Right.
But if there was some suggestion that it should go that way, then we would invite contractors. That doesn't mean they're all gonna come to that training
I
either.
think
Then
that what
you have
Ryan
to
is saying
can
is
you
important.
mandate it?
I like where you're going with it because it's specific to, so, for instance, I think one of the ones that, what were the other ones that didn't have it? Maybe the horse program didn't have it?
Horsemanship, and even
tennis,
pottery.
Pottery.
Truth. And anyway, pottery.
And all three of those are off-site. And so they
Yes.
don't have access to anyone. And so I think as we're planning activities and looking at it and we get a contractor, the policy could be clearly that because you're an off-site provider, we need you to meet our standard of being CPR and first aid certified. That seems reasonable to me. I understand it's not what we've done before but I do think we should pay for the class and we should pay for the certificate.
I totally agree with that. And I keep going back to the same thing is we still have to consider, I think, where the rec department is protected and where they're not protected. Right? Even if they're off-site and they're covered, does that, and I don't know if this is indemnify the rec department from responsibility? I mean, those are things I think we need to
No.
know in order to come up with any kind of a suggestion as far as what's required and what's not.
Right.
Well, I
And
think
the
we've had
other-
that answered. We had that
Well,
answered from the JPIA,
right,
which
that-
is, it is not required.
Not legally
There's no legal
required to be
requirement. This is-
CPR and first aid.
But it's best, it would be a good idea, was I think one of the sentences, I mean, so I think what we're doing is, we know that, and now as a commission, we have the ability to make a recommendation. And what I think would be a good recommendation on the contractor side is if you are off-site as a contractor, we as the city, the city requires, the recreation department requires you to be CPR and first aid certified. We will pay for the class and we'll pay for the certification.
That is.
Does it last 2 years?
Yeah.
Is it 2 year?
It's a 2-year
2
program.
years.
And that is not unreasonable
Right.
at any stretch of the imagination.
And I think it's nice for them because now they have it. I think
Yeah.
we're offering them something at
Like-
the same time. The thing is
I
the
mean, I
challenge of
do
getting
think-
people scheduled into the classes, and I do understand that.
That is the challenge, because someone comes as an independent contractor, we just did if we did a hypothetical and we just did a training, someone comes up and they say they want to offer Zumba.
Right.
And I say to them, "Oh, do you have CPR and first aid training?" "No, I don't." And I want to do it in my studio but through the rec department. Just roll with
I think
me.
that
And then do we say, okay, you can do it, but only when you either go find a private independent training course for CPR and first aid, or
I think
take
it
the
means you
next
have to
class we
offer,
have that's
you have to
3
offer a
months.
schedule of classes at this point.
Right, but I think that seems pretty reasonable to me. I mean, I think there's
Sure,
a quality
I'm
standard
just saying
there.
we
that
could just
if-
use that as a,
as a department, if we're going to offer something off-site, that there's some assurance that there's some
Sure.
coverage there.
which is what I hear you saying, like any off-site activity, even if it's a new independent contractor, if you want to offer it through the recreation department, you will either go through one of our trainings or you will find one of your own trainings.
And I think it's
Yeah.
like Adam had in his comment, it's not tomorrow. You have a window within which to do it. And that would come back to how often are we going to schedule it, should partially determine the window a
Right.
little bit. Because that window has to then fall into place with when we are able to get them in.
Right.
Or if they go
That
get
should be
their,
on.
or,
Yeah, but I think that should be on us to make it as convenient and easy as
Sure.
possible.
Right, and
but if,
in,
go ahead.
sorry, Allison, in the past, how frequently have you offered the trainings?
I just started doing the trainings last year, I think, and we did 3 or 4, 3.
In the year?
Three.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we did it relatively
So
seldom,
a requirement like this would mean like we need a lot more
once every couple months or
opportunities.
something.
Or the
or
option could be that
communication.
they go get their own and we reimburse them for that cost.
Or the JPIA, which we are a part of, they have classes various places that you could plug people into, right?
Yeah, like they have a minimum of, you have to have a minimum
10.
of 10 for them to offer it. And I suppose they could go to other cities. I'm not sure how that would work, if other cities are doing trainings and we could piggyback off of that. Like JPIA doing another training at another city where we could send I don't know if
Right.
they'd allow that or not, but maybe they would, to send our
Well, so then
contractors and staff to it.
it comes back to like, if we could we do it quarterly? And would we give them a window to get it done on our quarterly basis?
Right. And if someone's doing a summer program, is that like if that window is too long, we could have.
Well, I think we
We
would
don't
probably
have-
schedule one like right before summer, I imagine,
Just-
because we always have staff that'll need to get done.
need it,
So I
mhm.
mean, and our contractors, we don't let a contractor come in July and run a camp, they have to plan it in advance.
Right.
So theoretically,
That would give enough
they would be
time.
able to do it right before their summer programs start.
Yeah.
Which is kind of where we went with this one.
Yeah.
Is, coming right before the summer, we'll get as many people
Mhm.
trained that are available to be trained,
Right.
Yeah.
without saying it's mandatory. But if you want to say, but if your thing is mandatory off-site, but I'm hearing from one of the commissioners that we want it to be after 90, within 90 days, you need to get it done. A full-time staff? Is that what it was?
Yeah. So
A
it's
full-time staff within 90 days and a part-time staff within 30.
Now, Allison, the online version, what is that? Do you know much about other people who could do that training and what it would take and the numbers and how that works?
I mean, I've gone through the online course for other trainings, not for CPR and first aid. So like, I know like what it looks like. Are you meaning like other people offering it, or?
Yes, I mean, what would it take? How many people would you need to have doing that to then get the instructor to do the part that you have to do in person?
I don't know about any other
Okay.
instructors. I mean, I know like, I don't know anybody else that's offering the online. I know like the YMCA in Ventura offers classes, but they're in-person classes.
Okay.
I mean, if I were to run, one, I could do it for one person even. Generally, we.
Well, I
we
hope you
more
get your
than that, but-
certification.
Well,
The
you-
plan.
Certainly
That's the
makes
idea.
Yeah, and I mean, you talked a little bit about the reimbursable. I mean, I suppose that's possible too. Like, I mean, if we're trying to set maybe if they go to another find another option.
Like through the Y, possibly.
Through the Y.
It is
and then
much
they
more
get
pricey.
reimbursed. Maybe we wouldn't
Yeah.
pay them for the time since we're gonna have to also pay for the course, you know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
I
We
mean,
gotta draw the line.
scale-wise-
Somewhere on expense.
how many contractors are we talking about, and like, what is the typical cost if they went somewhere else and got reimbursed?
For an outside course, I would imagine over $100.
Like 120?
Somewhere around there,
Yeah.
yeah. If you're talking just strictly off-site contractors, I think there's only 3 or 4 of them. But then if we were to encourage all contractors, then that would be a significant number. You might have that in your head better than I do. How many contractors we have? No, just general, how many contractors we have actively working.
20.
But
But
those
probably
are-
4 or 5 are offsite, if that.
Yeah, well, we mentioned them here, and unfortunately, they're the ones who aren't. Horsemanship, tennis, I do not believe, Rick, because we put out an email to all the contractors saying, hey, let us know if your CPR and first aid, if you have your CPR and first aid certification, and some actually just flat out didn't respond, but yeah, it's horsemanship, tennis.
Is it
well,
pottery?
Pottery. Those might be the only 3.
Well, and part of me says the likelihood of getting hurt in pottery and the likelihood of getting hurt in horsemanship
Of course.
might be a little
They're all-
different.
they're all- yeah.
Looks,
Yes.
Mr. Chair, if I could just join in on the discussion, because I've got a couple of questions. Does the insurance company, does it say that we'll get a better rate if everybody is certified? Because I will tell you, in certain instances, and it seems illogical, but for instance, at the skateboard park, we don't have any supervision there. And if somebody gets hurt, there's no liability on the part of the city. But if we have supervision there and somebody gets hurt, then there is liability on the part of the city. Well, just sitting here listening to the discussion, if you have people that are CPR as certified and first aid, you certainly would like to have that, but it don't hold everybody to a higher standard, which means that you better do it right, or there could be some liability for doing it wrong, rather than doing nothing.
as in if there's a policy about having to have it done.
Yeah.
Then if you don't have it done, you're in breach of whatever you said you
Yeah,
were going to do,
so
and then you have liability.
my question is, what does the insurance company say? I mean, do they say, if you have everybody CPR and first aid certified, you're gonna get a better rate? Or, you know what I mean? Or how about, what do they say about?
They didn't say that.
I mean,
They didn't say
and
that.
what kind of, if
State
we
that.
impose, if the city imposes the certification on a third-party vendor, like a
Like an
contract,
independent contractor.
and then somebody gets hurt and they botch it,
Right.
does that then create liability back to the city? I don't know the answers.
Yeah, if they said right, like you're saying, yeah,
Right.
if you need to if we insist that you get it, and then they go and get it, and
Something
then
goes wrong.
something
Yeah,
goes wrong.
but as a lawyer,
I
these are
think
the-
they talked about.
These are the first things I
Well,
think
No.
They
about.
do talk if you're doing it within the
Within your
the
scope of training,
within
you
your
are
scope of
protected.
training, and you're protected by the Good Samaritan law, you'll
Right.
be okay.
But maybe is this
Definitely
the
an
difference
option.
between making it, this is what you have to do, and we would love for you to do this, here
Yeah.
are options.
Yeah.
So we can do that
Yeah,
safely.
I just don't know the answer to that question.
But if you did it, if our recommendation was to encourage people, that isn't the same as saying they have to do it, right?
That's right.
So.
But I
encouraging
think if
people,
you
okay.
ask the carrier, you know, tell me the ramifications of both ways.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, they're the ones that are gonna, have to pay the coverage.
But I think also is if somebody enrolls in a program, whether it's horsemanship or pottery or tennis or basketball, through the rec department, is there generally an implied that, I don't know what the right word is,
Well,
Paul,
It's a
but-
waiver of liability.
Yeah, are you protected if you hurt yourself? Is somebody going to be there to assist you, or are they not? And that's,
Certainly, someone's going to be there to assist them, but are they all going to be CPR and first aid
Well,
trained? Yeah.
And I don't know whether the
Well,
city,
at the rec department, yes, I mean,
Yeah.
not right instantaneously, but there's
Within
going to be
shouting
someone
distance.
there's going to be someone on site that's trained in CPR. I'd say, if I was guessing, at least 50%,
Because
probably
you-
higher than
because
that,
your
are trained
gymnastics-
on site.
Yeah, I
All
mean-
of-
High, about
higher,
50 at this
75.
point, yeah.
I mean, I'm going conservative with 50.
Yeah.
It's probably closer to 75% of the people,
And-
of the staff on site are trained.
we'd have to check with Matt Summers,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
because I don't know, do we have waivers of liability when people are doing gymnastics or
Yeah.
horse and
Any-
stuff?
Anyone.
Okay.
If
All right.
they do any
Well, then it-
activity on site.
Then it
Youth
probably would
or
make a big
everyone
difference.
Signs a waiver
Yeah.
On
saying,
everything.
I'm joining this activity and I'm doing it
My own
with
risk, yeah.
known risks.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
know this
okay.
could be a
Right.
hazardous activity and I could get injured.
Right, but
You know,
just to, not to put you on the spot, but my understanding is, and I might be 100% wrong, that those waivers mean virtually zero.
No, they're very powerful.
Are they really?
Yeah.
I was
It
told
doesn't
something
mean, it
100%
doesn't mean you
different.
can't be sued.
Yeah.
No,
if
I
there's
mean,
if there's negligence.
I'll put, my lawyer hat on for a minute. It doesn't mean you can be sued for anything.
Right,
It's
of
just
course.
whether or not that's going to be
Right.
a vehicle to get you out of the lawsuit.
Yeah, okay.
And they are, they're enforceable.
Okay. Because that's always been
Very
my
much
concern, is
enforceable.
where do we fall
Yeah.
in the protection area
Yeah,
there? So
no,
if that's
they're
the case, and
enforceable.
waiver, everybody signs a waiver,
Yeah.
I'm good.
That doesn't mean we're not, that doesn't mean
Yeah,
we're not.
but then again, that doesn't mean you don't want to try to help them if
Of
they
course,
get hurt.
of course not.
Yeah.
No, and I fall back to, I'd still love to have everybody
Yeah.
certified, but, and again, that can be the long-range goal, but if we're moving in that direction in increments, that may be the way to do that,
Well, and
whatever those
there's a huge
increments are.
difference between telling someone they have to do something and offering them the opportunity and encouraging them.
Yeah,
We need to be on the offering the opportunity and encouraging them.
Well, but it also sounds like there's a very small number of cases where we have this issue where
A gap
there's
at all.
A gap,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, I
A
agree.
significant gap.
Yeah,
Sure.
Um,
That's a fair statement, and,
we're well
I-
covered, yeah.
and of the off-site, not to beat up on our poor off-site contractors, because the great news is we have experienced little to no significant injuries,
Yeah.
honestly,
Yeah.
over this course of time, at least that I've been here, and and I think they would be willing to get that training, especially if we offered it at no
Pay for
cost
it,
to them.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think there's an issue of uniformity and training as well here. From my standpoint, I've taught hundreds of CPR classes and hundreds of first aid classes, and I've seen a lot of certifications come from online and from hokey companies that will give you a pamphlet, say, read this, and then give you a card saying you're CPR and first aid certified.
Sure.
I think we need to stick with the American Red Cross and Red Heart Association.
That makes sense.
agreed.
Sure.
If we're gonna reimburse somebody especially, it's gotta be in that regard.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So do you think we're ready for a recommendation?
Yeah, I'm not gonna agree with you guys' recommendation. I don't think I agree with you. I don't think we should force anybody. I do think that it should be an eventual requirement for full-time employees and for volunteers on site. For contractors, that's kind of a gray area in my
A little
opinion.
murky, yeah.
If we're on city property, does that make any difference of whether or not, that, are all the offsite contractor, programs on city property?
No.
Is that an issue of liability of city property versus not city property?
Somebody else's dance studio or
Right.
something like that, right?
I mean, we can't rely on somebody else's liability insurance, of course, but I think we're on the safe side if we recommend, we say, here, we'd like you to do this. Sign this if you refuse, That'd be my eyes, but I don't like forcing, like you said, I don't like forcing anybody to do anything in that regard.
And I think at the point where we're asking them to sign not doing something, it implies that we're really wanting them to do that, which then heads us back, doesn't it, toward if we're absolutely requiring it, then it is just like the skate park thing. If no one supervises it, we're totally safe. But the moment you get someone out there to help people, in the best interest of the people, you then
Increases
take
your
on
liability.
all the liability.
Yeah. You didn't stop them from doing this. You didn't
Right.
do that.
They weren't wearing a knee pad. They weren't, it comes down to all the rules
Why
and
didn't
everything
why
being
didn't you
done.
elevate,
Yeah.
your training tells you in CPR and first aid to elevate and ice. Why you didn't do that? So now look what you cost. So,
Well, what do you think?
Again, I'll fall back on, we should recommend, but not force. City employees are a different story. We can literally, we can't, but the city can literally say, if you want to keep your job, you got to get CPR certified. I mean, that's always been an issue with every healthcare industry. So, Again, I think it's just a recommendation, goal of 100%,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
but not forcing anybody to do anything.
You mean
You're talking
Independent
strictly for
contractors.
You're talking about
contractors.
independent
Spec-
contractors.
Specifically. I don't know how.
But are you on board, with, maybe with some of the other commissioners here with offering it, not forcing them, offering it and paying and having it
Absolutely.
paid?
That-
If you choose to
logistically,
get it,
that's
you'll
the
be
only way
reimbursed.
it's gonna
I know.
If you choose to get it, you'll be reimbursed.
As long
or
as
if
it's
you
the
go through our
American Red
training.
Cross.
Right,
That's
a sort of, yeah, recognized or whatever.
Uniformity in training, and if
Yeah.
you offer it, or at least offer reimbursement of costs, that's the only way it's really gonna work.
Through American Red Cross.
Right, or American Heart Association.
American Heart Association.
And Commissioner Gilbert?
Personally, I think off-site contractors should be required because you just, like with horses, like I've worked with horses, they can be dangerous animals, and if you're working with kids are, accident prone, and if something happens off-site and there's no one around that can help them, it could take, 30 minutes to get an ambulance there, and that could cause serious problems. So I think off-site contractors should be required, maybe not, the on-site contractors. I don't know exactly how that works, but, and then, other people should definitely be like strongly encouraged to get CPR and first aid certified.
So it sounds like we've got kind of a
Mixed bag.
split here.
Yeah, it's
We've-
not like we can put an asterisk on the side of the program saying, these people aren't certified for first aid.
Yeah. Well,
Don't
Well,
recommend us doing that.
Yeah, and for those watching, I don't want this to come across as, we've got zero. Our numbers are pretty high on
Yeah.
those who are certified. And
Right.
I think almost all now in our after-school care program are,
I think after
will
this
be-
Sunday, we'll be
after this
down
Sunday.
to one
Yeah.
that isn't.
that
I think
isn't,
for summer camp, you only have maybe 2 that aren't.
that aren't. So I just want to,
Yeah, no.
clarification.
Right.
The
No,
majority
it-
is-
We've
Yeah.
had this talk like as if we're trying to solve a big,
No.
we've got this epidemic of no one certified in CPR and
Yeah.
first aid, and that's not the case.
No.
Right.
So
Right.
just
I mean,
want-
yeah.
just for-
We're taking
just
a
for the record.
sledgehammer to
Just for
something
the
that
record.
probably
This,
needs
this
much
has been
less.
regurgitated a lot. This
So many times.
this is our leaf blower issue.
Yeah.
Okay, so I mean, it sounds like a couple of us would like to.
Would you like to make a recommendation?
Yes, but it doesn't sound like there's enough support
Well,
for
Well,
it.
make it,
Make it
that's
and
how
see
we
what
find
happens.
out.
Make a
We got enough
motion
here.
even, or make a motion for it and
All right,
see where it goes.
all right. Commissioner Gilbert, would you like to make a motion?
I would like to make a motion that, no, I gotta do the right wording, hold on. That,
And again, this is a recommendation to the city council if we're
Recommendation.
talking about it.
that full-time and part-time employees, we strongly encourage them to get CPR and first aid certified, but it's not required. Is that the right wording?
Mhm.
And for offsite,
And off-site
Contractors.
contractors should be required.
I like that.
okay. Is there a second to
I'll
that motion?
second that.
Okay, any discussion, amendments? All right.
Discussion again?
That's the process.
You can,
Process,
actually.
That is the
Yeah,
process.
you
Yes.
can.
I think we should-
Specific to the motion.
My opinion is we should flip that, and it should be required of full-time and volunteer employees on site, and then strongly recommended to contractors. Granted, contractors, especially off-site, off-city property, they're gonna need it more than on-site would, I think, because there's more eyes on-site. But honestly think we're gonna start losing people if we start forcing them.
But when you just said you want to flip that and require full-time people to have it, you are forcing them.
As a city employee, they can be forced.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not by me, but by the
Right,
city.
I know, I understand. Right.
I mean, it's kind of a job, it can be written into the job description even in the
Right.
future.
Can I suggest on that motion, once you get it, that just how it's going to be covered fee-wise? Like,
Right.
You-
I'd like
you-
to, I would offer an amendment to the motion, which is to cover class fees as long as it's American Heart Association or the American Red Cross.
Correct, yeah.
And paying for the certificate. I also would like to amend it so that the contractors are strongly recommended, but not required.
So that's, I think, up to Commissioner Gilbert.
That's if I get a second.
Well, I second that.
And then we vote on that,
Right, so.
whether the
I-
amendment passes.
Yeah, I can see the benefits to doing that instead of requiring.
It may not pass. We take a vote on the amendment and see where it goes.
I'll say as part of the discussion, I wouldn't support that, because I think the one issue we identified is that there's a few places where we have off-site events and we don't have anyone with training, and I don't think this would really address that.
Yeah.
So that's the discussion. If
Right.
anyone else has more discussion, or then we take a vote on the amendment.
Yeah. Okay, should we vote?
On the amendment.
Uh-oh.
Are we voting on, are you guys voting on the
Amended
amended?
I think you would just vote on the
You just vote on the amendment I
motion.
made, and it either goes up or down.
I think, wouldn't you just vote on the amended motion, like all in one?
Are we voting on the switched or on the original?
Is that, well.
The only, you made a motion, and then we had discussion, and then I offered up an amendment, which got a second, and then you discussed my amendment.
Right.
And now either you like the amendment or you don't.
Okay, okay.
Right?
I was
But do
looking
we
at it.
get-
And then we go back to the original motion,
Yes. we can do
unamended
that.
or amended,
Correct.
depending on where people go on the amendment.
Correct.
Did you
We're using way more
Did you get a
Robert's
second?
rules than
I know,
usual.
but
I did
it's
get a
okay.
second.
It's all right. They allow that. It's allowed.
So why don't we
Robert's
clarify?
rules of
spell
order
it out
are-
again?
The amendment one more
Do-
time?
do you want-
Okay. Do you want to tell us what you thought you heard, or do you want me to try and repeat it?
Okay, well, I mean, it just seems like he agrees with your change, so why not just have him remake his motion with your wording included? That
No,
way he
'cause
can
So
just vote on
we
it.
already have a
He
motion.
seconded my amendment motion.
Yes.
I motioned to
Oh,
make
sorry,
an
you
amendment.
seconded
He
it?
seconded
Right.
it. You did, and then Ryan discussed it, and now we can re-clarify what it is, either by
I'm not the
Allison.
parakeet. You're-
Yeah.
Yeah,
either
so
by-
I understood your amendment to be that we include covering the class fees as long as it's by one of the two approved organizations, and that we are strongly encouraging but not requiring contractors to be certified.
And the certificate fee too, as well.
And requiring,
So let me
City
clarify
employees.
I
that
didn't
just
amend
for
that
my
part.
part. So you're asking that we pay for the fee of their certificate and for their time to attend the class?
No, their class. I thought they were two different things. When Sophocles left it
Generally,
out.
they're the same.
Okay, good.
Generally, they're the same.
Sorry.
So, yeah.
Then yes, that would be the amendment to the motion that was on the table. And now we vote, and people either want the amendment or they don't want the amendment, and then we'll decide.
right,
And if we don't want it, we just go back to our original motion.
correct.
What if you want like one part of the amendment but not the other?
So that could be after we
Then
vote on
you can
this.
veto it and
we
make
can-
an
we
motion.
can- You can vote no to this and then propose another amendment.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay, so should we take a vote?
Sure.
you call for it, yeah.
Okay, I'm calling the vote.
Commissioner Gilbert.
Nay. Is that no? Nay?
Yeah, you're good.
You got it.
Commissioner Jacobson.
Yes.
Commissioner Intner.
Yes.
Commissioner Firestone.
No.
Commissioner Murphy.
No.
So it fails.
The motion fails.
Yeah.
Okay,
Now
so
we're back to the
now,
original.
if somebody would like to propose a different amendment, this would be their opportunity.
I would.
Should we vote on the two motions that are on the table, or we just get three
No.
different motions on the table?
So we have our main motion on the table, and this is the opportunity for anyone to amend it. And there was an attempt to amend it
It failed.
that failed, but there can be other attempts.
It's so exciting. We've never used this
Yeah.
much.
I'm glad you're here.
But technically, Commissioner Gilbert's motion is also still on the
Yep.
table.
It is still on the table.
And open for discussion.
Yes, so an amendment is an amendment to Commissioner Gilbert's motion. It's not a new motion.
Okay.
Okay,
So-
so,
What's
I-
your original?
Or you can, no, or you can call for a vote. If,
right, so Allison, could you read the motion?
Commissioner Gilbert's motion?
Please. Yeah.
That full-time and part-time employees are strongly encouraged to be certified. Off-site contractors are required.
And I would like to make the amendment that we do pay for their certification in class if it's by the two.
By the approved organization. Okay.
And could you add to that the only certain kind of,
American Red Cross.
Oh yeah,
and
American
Heart
Red Cross and
Association.
American Heart Association.
okay. I'll second that. Any discussion on that amendment? All right. Should we vote
So,
on?
just quick clarification, so both independent, the city would pay for both staff and independent contractor, but independent contractor just for the training, not for their time.
Right.
We didn't add time in there.
Correct, yeah.
Okay, just for clarification, right?
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, so now we're voting on this amendment, not on the full motion, but on this amendment.
Why don't we just vote on the whole
Why
deal?
can't-
Because that's not the
process, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so
We're
let's,
employing the process
let's
tonight.
go for
That's
it.
okay.
Yeah.
All right.
All right,
Yes.
Oh, you're
Oh,
calling
wait.
for a vote?
yes.
Okay.
So-
Commissioner Gilbert,
Yes.
Commissioner Jacobson,
Nay.
Commissioner Entner,
No.
Commissioner Firestone,
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy.
Yes.
So it passes.
It passes.
2-2.
All right.
Now you could just call it vote.
So now, should we call the vote?
I'll call the vote.
Okay, thank you. Anyone opposed? No. All right.
Commissioner Gilbert,
Yes.
Commissioner Jacobson,
No.
Commissioner Entner,
No.
Commissioner Firestone,
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right.
So.
Done with that
I think
one.
we've got that pretty straight.
Good. So we have a recommendation
Yeah.
to City Council.
Yes.
All right.
All right.
So item 9, recreation staff report updates.
Ojai bike proposal, I haven't heard anything since our last public comment from John Lamar. So I think it's still in that
They're working.
working through that environmental phase. But I have got zero information to add from the last meeting. So,
Okay.
unfortunately.
That's fine.
Presentations and recognitions, we had a couple of nice ones this
Yeah.
evening. Remind me, Chair Firestone, that we were putting this on here just to have some sort of a protocol, maybe?
Yeah.
Or like when we do a recognition, or what do we want? Do we want to have some sort of consistency with that?
Right. So I had a thought that, there might be maybe some lower key recognitions that we want to do, maybe not making a plaque, but at least kind of inviting people in and saying something about something they've done. And some things that came to my mind were the Civic Association for the picnic structures. I mean, I know there was something at the open house, but then also Skate Ojai for the work they did to get the skate lights in.
Absolutely.
I thought it'd be nice, just to have them in here and say a few words about what they did and thank them. And if we had a process where people could recommend, noteworthy individuals or organizations, and then we could invite them in, I thought that would be nice. So that was.
Yeah, I know that was your thought, like what sort of,
Well, like
what kind of gauge or what kind of,
the Tennis
like
Association too is another one that does
yeah, the
so
OVTC,
much.
yeah,
Oh.
we talked about them.
Yeah.
And do we want to do it every meeting? Do we want to do it every other meeting? How often do we want to have these recognitions or presentations at our meetings?
Why not every meeting? It's not like we're gonna have them every meeting.
As needed.
Yeah, right.
I mean, because it's
Don't make it a
somebody,
requirement,
when, I think when,
Well, presentation or recognition.
yeah, when somebody feels a need to have one, then we have one. Otherwise, we don't.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yep.
seems simple enough.
I think so.
Yeah,
can
and
roll with that.
I
But
think we should
yeah.
keep them brief. I mean, our meetings are long,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, but I want you to, I guess too, if individually, if you guys wanted to recommend or by email to say, hey, I think we should have this instructor come in or this person come in, I think it's time for this.
We could email Ryan and Ryan can be in
Yeah.
charge of
Yeah.
that.
Well,
Good.
I think too, not necessarily for presentations, but for recognitions, much like I discussed with Rick, it would be nice if we posted something maybe on the rec center page so outside people know somebody's being recognized.
Like on the Facebook
Because
page?
it's, yeah, it doesn't do great, to me, it's great to recognize Rick, but who's going to find out about it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, it would be nice that when you recognize somebody, they actually, there's an audience here to watch them get recognized,
Yeah,
in my opinion.
that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So that, I mean, it sounds like we have a process here that if you have a request, you send it to me. We prepare for it by making an announcement on the rec center page or the Facebook page saying we're going to be recognizing so-and-so for such and such.
Yeah.
And then we have
you-
them here and say a few words.
If you were
and-
ever
Or even-
affected by them
or even a
had
blurb in the paper. I mean-
benefited from it or whatever you.
God
Are we
knows the
budgeted
paper
for
needs news.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
You know, so-
Placards and papers.
I think it can be a certificate.
Well,
It's not like
right,
a
right,
participant
because
paid,
like tonight we
trophy.
did a plaque, but you know, again, OVTC, we, let's say we are gonna invite them to our next Park and Rec Commission, do we?
Right, do we make a
Are we
printout?
We're
or-
gonna print a certificate thanking them, are we just gonna come in and merely thank them, so.
I think,
That was the other part of it too,
Yeah.
is like some sort of consistency with how we are gonna go about
well,
recognizing.
like we did with the gymnastics, they got certificates,
Yeah.
if I remember right.
Yeah, they did.
I don't think
if-
we're going to have a universal policy for each
No,
one
I
being
guess
the
No,
same.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
I think we are, good judgment will come into play, and
Okay,
Ryan will
we can create
be
something.
the,
I suppose.
he's the one we'll send them to.
Yeah, and when we get to the future agenda items and ad hoc committees, maybe we can have a committee take
there
over
you go.
this task.
Oh, would you like to recommend at this
No.
time? No, I'm not talking about starting a committee, but, a group right now, a group to go, well, I guess
No.
we can wait till we
No.
get to future agenda.
No, it sounds like we have it in place. Send recommendations to me.
Yeah.
I'll
Okay.
work with Sophocles.
Great, perfect,
We got
all
it.
right.
Okay, anything else on that? I think the other part of that presentations, there was a thought to be kind of billing upcoming programs through the rec department that need some advertising, maybe.
Or just like, it was great. The aquatics presentation was excellent.
Right.
And staff will work on that, I guess, to
Yeah.
try to bring something to each meeting. Or a instructor, maybe not every meeting.
Doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
When it makes sense.
Yeah.
All right,
Okay.
ready for the next Sarasota master plan?
Mhm.
As you may or may not know, that was brought before City Council on May 9th. It did get a split vote, so it wasn't approved at that meeting. We will be taking it back to council because they had some concerns, and some of those concerns were the Boyd Center. Parking was another concern. Some of
The
the
numbers.
costs of some of the projects and whether it was even necessary to.
I don't know if it was the
include
cost
in
of the
it.
project so much, the
Well,
numbers
was
did
it?
not add
Oh,
up.
The numbers didn't add
To
up.
be clear, the numbers didn't add up, was the
Well, the
concern.
numbers didn't add up because.
Yeah,
yeah,
I
we
just
won't
didn't want
get
to
into
imply
that.
that it was
Yeah.
about the cost of a project, because it
No,
was not.
It wasn't because of the cost of the project. It was because of the way the numbers were skewed on the page.
They didn't
But
add
that
up.
was it was just a conversion from whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever PDF to another PDF or Word to PDF, it just messed up the numbers, but the calculations were incorrect. They were just displayed wrong on the page, but that's neither here nor there. They did ask for needs, what needs are, one of the council members asked, well, what needs aren't currently being met with the facility as it is? And if this project is adopted, how will that improve your program, or what programming will you be adding because of this?
Specifically the rec center building, that's the
Well,
facility
yeah,
they're talking about.
That one in particular, but others, even the multi-sport courts
Okay.
as well, or anything else, how will that improve a need that isn't being met?
Got it.
So, it was supposed to come back before, council on June 13th, but I'm not sure if we're gonna get there
Okay.
with some of the, with enough information or enough analysis to be able to do that. So the next would be June 27th. So either the 13th or the 27th. Because if we're going to add to the existing staff report, it may take some time.
Yeah. Is there
To get that information
any
put
support
together.
from the commission that?
I don't think so. It's more from our own staff of coming up with where our needs are
Yeah.
and what having this new facility will bring to our programming. That's going to take a little time.
Yeah.
Especially when the staff reports are due.
Right. So that's
Tomorrow or Monday.
yeah. So if anyone has any thoughts on that, you can email Sophocles. Sounds
Yeah.
like, right?
Oh, absolutely. You can give your input there, but
And
it's,
since the meeting, we've had walkthroughs with 3 city council members on site.
Yeah, yes, we have, whether it's parking or, parking issues and how that will help, or the flow, we talked about that, the flow of getting people in and out of the rec department, so
Mhm.
we could certainly use your input on that.
Okay, great. Anything else on that? Any questions?
Had nothing but positive
Yeah,
feedback at the booth.
Yeah,
yeah.
at the open
Like that.
house. Mhm.
Mhm. Okay.
Found it very exciting.
Of all things, of all booths, right?
Yeah.
Nice topic there.
Let's talk about that open house. So
Yeah.
we'll go on to
Great.
classes and events. So we had an excellent, successful open house. I want to thank the commissioners that were able to make that event. It was a good time had by all. We had a ribbon cutting. I guess I'll pass that out. There was a ribbon cutting for our Sarasota picnic area. And then another photo that's on there was the ribbon cutting for the skate park. I don't
Oh,
remember the
nice.
exact date
It was a
for
morning.
skate park
Yeah.
lights, but
Nice picture,
Hey.
so there's a couple.
You were there, you don't need to
Any-
look.
Allison, anything you want to add about the open house? Anything of significance that, aside of the ribbon cutting and the rock wall, which is always successful?
Pizza was good. One slice at a time.
Yeah, it was a big hit again this year. Attendance, I think, was a little bit lower than it has been in the past. So we did mark it a little bit differently. I didn't send flyers to the schools, which we usually do. So I think I'll go back to doing that next year after seeing the dent that might be part of it. But got great feedback. We loved having five-a-side there and the stage outside. This was the second year we did it, and I think it adds a lot to the event, having the stage and kind of the center focus of the event. The ribbon cutting went smoothly. That was kind of some added feature that we, kind of worked having lunch over there. It worked out well. And we had more staff this year than we've ever had before, so it went really smoothly, which was great because those of you that were there know that it was hot out. So I was really grateful that I had enough staff to kind of give everybody breaks and get people out of the sun. So yeah, it went great. I had a great time. Hope you guys did too. And it was great to have you guys there and doing balloons and everything, and a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was a really nice event. Kids were having a really good time.
Thank you.
Raffle was exciting.
Raffles, the instructor demonstrations were
Mhm.
great.
I thought it was really nice too, those kids getting their awards in front of that big group on a stage
Yeah.
for soccer.
That was cool.
That was very special.
Yeah.
We have a new recreation specialist. Her name is Megan Sennett. She is currently working for the recreation department in Ventura. So she is coming to us with a background in recreation. So she's been with us now one full week. She will be getting some serious training in the next couple of weeks when we have our summer program start.
Mm.
So the summer program will start on June 18th,
19th.
19th,
It's my mom's birthday.
18th or 19th?
19th.
June 19th.
Pretty confident.
We'll run 9 weeks. Yeah, and we'll run 9 weeks from there. And August 19th, or 18th.
I don't know that.
She's gonna look that. That's a little
I
farther
got my
out.
dates all mixed up. But
Counting down to the start. I'm not
so
counting
far-
down to the end yet.
So far, we have 250 participants pre-registered for our 1-week specialty camps.
That's
so that's
great.
a nice big number, and just under 100 participants in the aquatics program. And we expect about 50 participants a day in the day camp. I think that's about it. Last movie night was, what was the movie? Finding Dory.
Yeah.
We had 62 attendees at that
Good.
movie.
Nice.
Yeah, it was a nice big number. Our next movie night is Friday, June 23rd, and it will be Pete's Dragon.
All right.
The new one or the old one?
The new one.
New one.
New one, yeah.
Just
Okay, yeah. And that's all I have for classes and events.
Other information?
None
No?
other.
Okay.
Not at this point.
Item 10, Commissioner Committee Reports and Comments.
Well,
Gilbert.
for the youth committee, we haven't been able to meet this month because we've both been very, very busy. But our next meeting date is set for actually next Thursday, June 8th at 6 o'clock, if any of you want to
Good.
come check it out.
And where will it be?
The art room again?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yep, the
At
Boyd
the
Center.
Sarasota Park.
Great.
6 o'clock.
Yeah, that's my update.
All right. What are you guys going to be talking about?
Probably moving forward with the classes we discussed and any events that we
Yeah.
thought we could encourage the youth to come to.
Yeah, I was thinking maybe see if we could plan maybe a couple summer events and then
Yeah.
the fall workshops that we had talked about. Maybe
Yeah.
get some solid ideas for that.
Yeah, that sounds great.
It's
The
great.
recommendations you guys had from the last meeting, I thought sounded really good.
Yeah,
So,
I'm super
exciting.
excited for it.
Okay, anyone else?
Yep.
Oh, all right. Councilmember Blatt.
He's been very patient.
Yes,
Amazing.
I'm impressed. You've been here the whole time.
Another meeting, I know.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, I always enjoy being the liaison to all the commissions, but particularly the Park and Recreation. I really do find your meetings, the discussion items are very interesting. And this is the last month of the quarter, and I kind of feel like I've had so many trials going on and being out of town so much. I missed the open house, which I really wanted to be at. I missed the first 2 meetings of the quarter. I did request that another council member attend in my absence, but when I viewed the tapes, nobody was here, so I apologize for that.
He tried.
It wasn't that I didn't try to get somebody here for you. Personally, I really like the master plan. Randy Haney and I were the 2 votes that voted for it, and Councilwoman Francina and the Mayor Johnston, and Mayor Pro Tem Wyrick had questions and that's, I guess, why there's 5 people on the council. They had their questions, I didn't, but there was enough questions that it didn't go forward that night. I didn't find anything objectionable about it. I thought it was well-designed. I love the fact that we're moving forward. Some of the comments I heard to the negative was they were afraid what was going to happen to the old Boyd building. I have my own thoughts about that, but somebody wanted it to be relocated, and then the other is that there was a comment like, we're just going to look like every other recreation department in Ventura County. It's got some quaintness or some antiqueness to it or antiquatedness to it or whatever you want to call it. And if we do the design the way we did it, it was going to look like Camarillo or Ventura. Well, I look at it as though it's time to modernize a little bit for our youth. Old buildings have their place, but when they're not as functional as they can be with new design buildings, and we're dealing with youth, and youth needs to be moving forward and modernized and things like that, I think that's the direction we should go, and I believe that Councilman Haney felt the same way. But I think ultimately we're going to work that out, and we'll get an approval on it, I hope. I can't think of anything else necessarily that's hot topic of the city. There's always a few hot topics where, there was a petition circulated when the Visitors Bureau wanted to renew their it's called an OTID bid, which is the hotel people voted amongst themselves that they want to add a certain percentage to everybody's hotel bill, in the city. And then that money specifically gets spent on promoting Ojai as a general thing, not individually. And it's not coming out of our coffers. In fact, because you have to have an agency to collect the money, the city is the agency to collect the money, and that's the only reason why we were even involved in it. And for that, we get 10% to process the payments. And then when we renewed this one, or when we proposed the renewal, we said, okay, well, there was a lot of consternation in the community about how much tourism is too much. And, when you see signs downtown that say tourists go home, or is this too much for us? Where's all this traffic coming from? It puts kind of a bad light on our community. So we said, okay, well, let's do we'll take some money, we'll have them earmark money out of this to do traffic studies and the effect tourism's having on Ojai and things like that. So we had, I think it was $75,000 or $80,000 earmarked out to do that over the next 3 years. So it was passed for a 3-year renewal, but in California, there's a vehicle for citizens, if they don't like what a body has done, to be able to get signatures of 10% of the voting population of an entity. And if they do that, then they can call for a referendum so that any action that the city takes has to be an action with regard to a statute or an ordinance. But any action that the city takes then the council either has to rescind the action, make it go away, and they can't bring it back again, or call for a special election in which the people will vote on it, and whatever the general population says is what happens. Or you have to wait until the next general election, which would be in 2018, and have it on the ballot then. But in the meantime, everything that we decided was stayed and done. Well, that's going to come back before the council to decide what we're going to do, and that'll be on our first meeting in June, I believe. And I don't know which way the council's going to go. It's one of those things that as an elected official, you say you've been elected to try to make the best decision you can for the community, and people that have talked to me say, hey, that's what you're there for, is to make those decisions. But by the same token, it's there in the law, and if the vehicle is there and you put it to the vote of the people, well, I guess that, how better can you make a decision than if everybody votes on it? The problem I have with that is that if we call for a special election in 3 months, how many people are really going to vote?
Well, and how much does it cost?
The cost of a special election is around $40,000. And of course, we're now in budgeting, and that $40,000 is going to have to come from somewhere if that's what we decide to do. So it's going to come out of off somebody's plate. And I sure think that $40,000 could be spent,
We have a lot of places
in
to
park
put
and
it here.
recreations, or the museum or whatever it happened to be, a lot better than having a special election. But that's the law, so we'll find out. I'm kind of interested myself to find out how we vote at the next meeting.
It doesn't happen all the time.
No, it
This is
doesn't happen
unusual.
all the time at all. Other things is that we're enforcing our ban on short-term rentals, and there's a lot of activity going on with regard to that. The issue Greg Grant brought up a little bit earlier, the issue of whether we were going to ban leaf blowers in the city limits came before the council a couple of months ago. I made a motion to allow both electric and the low emitting gas blowers and regulate the time a little bit more heavily. That was the motion on the table, still the motion on the table, and now we're 3 months later. The mayor threw a motion on top of it. Then another motion was thrown on top of it. Ultimately, the motion that got 3 votes was that they were going to leave my motion on the table to do further, to look at it more, even though we've been looking at it for 3 or 4 years. But I will say that there's probably more options available for electric blowers now than there ever has been.
Yeah, right.
So, for that reason, I think, we want to look, and I think California is going in that direction. If you talk to people in Sacramento, California is probably going to go to all outside maintenance equipment going to electric. When that's going to be, who knows, but it's not that far in the future. And that'll include everything, lawnmowers and chainsaws, So if we can come up with an idea where I can get a consensus, because obviously what I had on the table, I couldn't get an overriding 3 votes. It may take going to electric. But there was an overwhelming desire on the part of the public, and there was an overwhelming desire by a couple of members on the council to just ban them altogether.
Well, I have a question. My question was, at one point it was about emissions, another point it was about air quality, but now we're back to emissions?
Well,
Like health, air quality.
well, originally it was noise.
In the very beginning,
It
it
had
was
to do with
noise,
noise.
yes.
And so, because the ultimate portion of the code that it falls under has to do with noise.
Okay.
So that's why, way back when, we went only to electric blowers. That's what's on the books now. But it wasn't being enforced, because it turned out that some of the electric blowers were louder than the gas blowers. And what do you really gain if it's under the noise ordinance? So there's been a suspension on the enforcement of the ordinance. Well, 2 meetings ago, the council voted 3-2 to withdraw that ban on enforcement. Who's talking?
I think that's
It's your phone, I
somebody's
think.
phone.
Wow. Oh, well, it's an alarm.
That's right.
Time to go home. I think that's what it
I
says.
think you need to have it turned down. the
That's
alarm.
That's funny.
So, 2 meetings ago, there was a motion that passed 3-2 to take the ban off enforcement. So I believe as of July 1, there's going to be no more ban on the enforcement, and everybody's got to be using electric blowers. But probably sometime in June, we're going to act on my motion, so
Okay.
I don't know what's going to happen.
Who knows? Okay.
Who
Well,
knows?
I get it now. I read little bits and pieces and I
Yeah.
didn't really understand.
Yeah, so I don't know what's gonna happen. I don't think the council's in the position that they're gonna do an outright ban, but I don't know. You don't know. You
All
really
right.
and truly
More
don't.
reasons to watch.
That's right, hey, coming to that's the cheapest ticket in town.
Must-see TV.
That's right, as long as you've got whatever it is that it's on, Channel 10.
That's right. Cable.
I'm here to answer any questions anybody might have, if you have any. I just appreciate everything you're doing. I mean, I was on the planning commission for 10 years, and that met 2 nights a month.
Oh, yeah.
And I'll tell you, I so appreciate the volunteer work in this city, because, there's all kinds of undercurrents that you hear. Well, what are the commissions doing? Why do we need 7-member commissions? Why do we need commissions at all? And they just don't understand the amount of work that you guys do and all the commissions do, and how fortunate we really are to have everybody, because the city couldn't operate without you. Really couldn't. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Yeah. All right. Item 12, future meeting dates and agenda items. So,
They look fine.
Thank you.
yeah,
I second
Oh,
that.
yeah.
there we go. Okay, so we had on here streamline and engaging ad hoc committees. Now that I think we've cleared some other items off our list, it sounds like we could get to that next month, July?
And I think but the more important item is the joint meeting and working
Yes.
on that.
So agenda items, so August is supposed to be our joint meeting,
Mhm.
It is.
city council. I am not going to be available for that. And I don't know, Sophocles, if you had a chance to.
I
about
did
that.
ask for a couple of rescheduling dates, if that's what we're going to choose to do.
Do we know
either
what the
keep it
exact
on
date of that
date,
is?
August 8th,
Which is do we know what day that is?
it's Tuesday.
It's
It's a
an
Tuesday.
hour
It's an hour before
scheduled
the
meeting.
scheduled city council meeting.
So that's 5 o'clock then?
So at 6.
6.
It's 1 hour.
6 o'clock. Okay.
6th to 7th.
All right.
It would be if we continue on the 8th, but
Yeah.
I think maybe Chair Firestone is saying he would like
Is
to
it
be
an
there.
option to
There's an option, so
pick a different?
it would either be, here's a couple of dates that we could reschedule to. We either go earlier and have it on July 25th, which is again, that's always, that's a council meeting.
Mhm.
Same thing.
Yeah, council meeting. It would be an hour before that council meeting date.
That, okay.
Or October 10th.
So there's nothing in September.
No, there's
Right.
nothing available in September.
So I personally, I wouldn't be available for July 25th. I would be for October 10th.
That's a long way out.
Right. So if
It doesn't bother
others-
me if we go to October 10th, but
Yeah, if there's a need to do it.
I'm not sure if
sooner.
I can be there 7:25. I think August 8th is fine.
Yeah, 7:25 is a
Yeah.
bit tough for
Right.
staff too, just because it's.
Soon.
Well, August 8th
summer
works for
program is
me.
pretty busy for us.
Tuesday night, I can get off work early and get here for that.
10, how does everybody else feel about 10:10? You think it's too far?
At,
I would tell you this, the only thing that's nice about that is we have a little more time to plan. And if we need staff help, it's a little easier if we push it off than try and do it during the summer. That would be my,
my take, and again, still somewhat new, is everything takes so much time here. Everything takes a long time to get going.
Yeah.
I would just as soon move things along.
Yeah.
That's just me.
Well, right, but if we have it on, again, if we have it on the 8th, then we'll be missing.
I understand
at
that
least
part.
one.
I just, wait another 60 days, basically what we're talking about.
it gives us time, though, to look at the materials before the presentation, which after all of these years, I actually really kind of like, because some years we've started 2 to 3 months in advance planning, because otherwise we don't have time to vet whatever it is we're going to do before the meeting.
Do
Certainly.
we approve the whole thing here at one of our meetings prior to? or-
I don't know that we approve it, but we talk about what we want to cover, the information that we want to have in the presentation. It has pictures and
Last
data.
year, I think I put together a presentation and I actually had it to you guys the month before. So I ran
Exactly.
through the
And
presentation
then we
with
made
you so
some-
you could give
We tweaked a
feedback
couple of
on
things
it.
here and there.
So that gives us more time to go over it.
And we do these joint meetings how often?
Once a year.
Once a year.
Once a year.
Yeah.
Takes a year to schedule them, I guess.
That's a part- yeah.
We usually do it around the same time every year, but I am happy with October in the sense that I think that it's going to be easier to get the work done. But
Yeah, because, I mean, in July,
it's camp time.
yeah, but I mean, I'm saying for our next,
Oh,
for our
7,
next
yeah.
meeting, we could even talk about agenda
Yeah, I
items
think it still should be
at
on the
that
agenda,
meeting,
yeah.
Yeah.
So is there anything
Because
that's?
we will put a PowerPoint presentation together, and then in August, we can at least say, hey, look at this is the in August and September, we can say, this is the PowerPoint presentation we put together based on the agenda that you wanted, and then
What would be the date in October?
10.
October 10th.
So we'd still have a
Tuesday,
meeting in
October.
October before that.
Right.
Parks and
Yes.
Rec
We
Commission
would.
would. I'm okay with that.
Okay.
You can do that date?
Yes, I could do that.
Okay.
So does that work for everyone?
Works for
October
me.
10th?
Good for me.
Okay,
Okay,
let's do that.
we'll reschedule
All
it
right.
then for October 10th.
Thank you. Thanks for being flexible.
Yep.
Okay, and then partnerships with the school district. Is that something we want to do in July? Discussion?
I think if we have time, it's not a bad thing to do because
We can
that
put it
is
on there
something
and see
to
how
work
our
on
time
during the
goes.
summer.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's important. Put it on there and see how time goes, and we can table it if we have to.
Okay.
And
Are there?
I would love to have some information out of that we could take forward to our joint meeting too.
Right. And is there, on that one, anything to kind of prepare in advance?
I think we gave you notes last month.
Yeah, you did. I have some.
I think we had some specific stuff that we covered that you had to look into.
Okay, so Sophocles has specific questions. Anything else that would be useful from any of us?
As a future agenda item, I would really like to get investigating a parks district that would include similar to the boundaries of the school district.
An all-valley district.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think we should get started on that.
Okay, great.
That's gonna be a-
As a discussion item.
That could be a-
And I agree, because that's gonna be a long
It's
process.
just, it's,
Right.
And the sooner we get moving on it, the
I,
better.
it's just a discussion.
No,
Yeah.
I'm a big believer in that, and I think the quicker we start to discuss it, the quicker it may come to fruition, and
So I don't know if it's next month or the month after, but I'm not pushing for a specific month, but I want it
Gotcha.
on the,
Great.
it's great.
Okay,
Yeah,
other
You don't know,
requests?
you don't know if you really want it for July, it could be July or August.
well, I think we have enough on July already,
Yeah,
Got
from
the
my perspective, especially if you're gonna
committees,
put a,
Planning for the joint
uh,
meeting.
yeah, especially if we have anything
School
come
district.
back from the restrooms, and then we'll have maybe some master plan information, probably not, but possibly. Or actually, no, we should, because even if it's the 27th, we should have that back
Yeah,
on there.
you should have it.
And if we have any presentations, I don't know.
Can we have a column on the agenda that says if time? If time allows, let's get to this.
Yeah, we can. So are there for future meetings, other agenda items of interest? No, okay, good. I think that's it, right?
Done.
Yeah? All right, meeting adjourned.
Nicely done.
Thank you.
I'm gonna email you in the next week or so with some. This is killing me.
Okay.
I think you and I talked about that briefly once before. but-